Good evening, everybody. Welcome to number 3, the third and final. You've made it. We've arrived. Happy New Year. The last time we were together, it was December, so it's been a while. But we'll do a quick refresh, and as you see, you've got all of your notes around the room, kind of refreshing the journey that we've been on. Thought for tonight's introduction. We have a lot of work to jump into, and thank you for being gracious and agreeing to extend this meeting tonight so that we can get through it. So we'll be quick about this, but I also want to be centered about it as far as what mindset we're bringing into the work. I don't know about you, but January's been a very busy month, and February is also going to be a very busy month. And so want to, again, just make sure we're centered around our intention and thinking about the mindset that we're bringing forward as we get into some challenging work tonight and a big body of it, or a big discussion. So mindset, I'll get you guys rolling. So Sarah Wilson, and the mindset I'm bringing tonight is momentum. You guys have done some really great work so far, and I hope we can build on that with momentum. All right. I'd like to introduce Ashley Isanoff has been with me the last couple of meetings, and I also have a new team member. She joined about a week ago and comes with lots of local government experience and probably feels like her first week was like a month. But this is Sasha Cannell. She was at the City of Gresham previously, and really proud to have her as a part of our team and assisting tonight. Sasha, you want to share your mindset?
Sure. Oh gosh, now I'm on the spot.
Sorry, I put you on the spot.
Positivity.
All right.
Yeah, sorry guys.
Excellent, thanks. Let's go around, Bill. Go ahead.
Bill Kirby, City Attorney, and this is my first governance meeting because I missed the first 2, and so catching up and interesting. I've looked at some of the Granicus tapes, but this is my first time here. So curiosity, that's what I'm going to say for one.
Excellent. I see a reminder in the back to make sure as you guys go around and speak to turn your mics on. All right.
That said, I'm not sure mine wants to come on. Great. Megan Thornton, Assistant City Attorney, and today I think teamwork as we work forward and move through some of the things we have on the agenda today.
Dan Weinheimer, Assistant City Manager. I think optimism is the mindset.
And your first meeting where you're fully on the team, so welcome, Dan. Mayor Beatty, and I think for me, clarity, so we can move forward.
This is Councillor Tivnon, and I had the exact same word. Just looking forward to getting some clarity with all of you.
Hi everyone, Nadia Hassan, or Councillor Hassan, or Nadia. Not gonna lie, overwhelmed. It's been kind of a month, but positively overwhelmed.
Councillor Duggar, I'm gonna third the mayor and Councillor Tivnon's clarity is my vibe tonight.
Edward Kimmy, my word is fun. I said fun tonight.
He likes the F word.
Councillor Teeter, I am coming in with thoughts of wanting to have a mindset of learning and also learning that's grounded in what's best for the Beaverton community.
Councillor Hartmeyer Prigg, I am thesaurusing clarity for a synonym, so I'm going to choose clearness because I think that our agenda today, I think, is just a lot of clarity for us as a group.
I think that's the theme for tonight, and every city manager wants clear direction, so that's my mindset.
Sia Lindstrom, Interim Assistant City Manager, and I think my word for tonight is aspirational. It's grounded. That's what I seek to be.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you guys for sharing that. I've been on the road doing a ton of council retreats, and I've heard the word clarity a lot, and I actually saw somebody get so much clarity this week that they did a happy dance around the room. So let's hope that Councillor Kimmy can have some fun and do a happy dance as well when the clarity is reached.
when recording with Counselor Kimmy this week, I learned that he played the guitar. So our next meeting, my expectation is you open it with a song.
I love it. Also, in the spirit of fun announcements. You guys aren't imagining it. I've reached my second trimester, so I am. This is not just like my piling up. There is a baby growing, which is fun, exciting, crazy. So all of the excitement. Yes. Oh, yeah. Let's do introductions from staff as well. So fun news and introductions continued. Let's hear your mindsets that you all are bringing this evening. Chief?
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Chief Jepson, I'm going to choose collaboration.
Patricia Anderson-Wick, I'm choosing curiosity.
Lee Crabtree, and I was going to go with learning because this is my first time in the room with you all. I will listen to you online, but it'd be good to hear from you in person, so thank you.
And it's going on and off, so hopefully they stay on. I'm Debbie Lochner, and I would say progress.
Right. All right, excellent. Well, the spirit of grounding as well, let's just kind of reorient to the outcomes that we're driving towards, the ground rules that we set to help us get there. So all of this work has been about improving team productivity and efficiency, gaining that clarity that you all are seeking on roles and responsibilities. That is our main focus for this evening. Building awareness around the impacts of behavior in this partnership amongst yourselves and with the council and staff, gaining clarity on specific procedures and protocols. We really worked on that during our last training. And then overall, with all of this clarity and awareness, being able to improve the organizational effectiveness. As far as our agenda this evening to guide us, we will start. Our whole discussion is focused around the roles and responsibilities piece. And you guys had a lot of conversation during our very first meeting about some topics that you're interested in covering as far as roles and responsibilities. So how this is laid out, we've broken those down into these different categories, and it's going to be pretty structured tonight so that we can get you all out of here by 9:15. That is the promise. So we're going to probably have to enforce the ground rules quite a bit to make sure that we stay on track and stay on time. So the first section will talk about intergovernmental roles and decision making. We'll take a break at 7:10. We'll shift into then talking about roles and responsibilities around boards and commissions, communications, speaking on behalf of the city, responding to constituents. After we get through that chunk of discussion, we'll have another break. And then the last piece will be around just general communication and any other future topics. We'll leave some time at the end to identify potential other topics that you guys might need to work on, because I know there were lots of questions. We can't do everything, but this is going to be our focus for this evening. Then at the end, we'll leave some time to wrap it up, talk about next steps. You guys have a goal-setting workshop coming up in just a few short weeks, and I have on my calendar to talk with some of you tomorrow in preparation for that. So that will be one piece that we'll talk about. We'll also talk about the work of the governance subcommittee and do some team reflections. So leave time for that at the end. And then, as promised, get you out of here by 9:15. Just to recenter around our rules for success. First one was respectful communication, assuming positive intent, having grace, honoring each other's perspectives, be concise in our communication. That's going to be really important this evening. So just making sure that you guys balance efficiency with the need to express your point. Just please, I ask that you please keep in mind, this is not the first time that you've been able to express concerns around this. So just try to balance your need for expression with also efficiency so that we can keep it moving. Knowing that this is a safe space to share opinions without judgment, be honest. So honesty, being direct, concise, achieve tenure to continue in the future, so for future trainings and workshops. Know that it's okay to start at zero. You guys are all learning, and I think this is, while some of this may be repetitive for some of you, making sure that you're all starting from the same place, or from equal ground, you should say. Focus on the position, not on the personalities. I think that'll be important tonight as we talk about those roles. And then we'll move forward with consensus or majority, make space and take space. So let's not dominate the conversation. Let's make sure we're giving everybody equal opportunities to participate. And then last will be to focus on the current charter. I know sometimes there's desires to consider potential future changes, but we're focusing on the documents we have in place. Okay? Any questions? Do we need any additional ground rules to help us for tonight? Does everybody feel good about? I feel like this is a great set, but if anybody needs anything else, now is a great time to raise that. Okay. Well, again, just kind of reflecting on the journey we've been on. We started over here talking about council manager form of government, and tonight there's a graphic, I believe, at your place, at your seats, that looks like this. Jenny, did you want to say a few words? I looked at this. This is an excellent graphic to just kind of highlight and summarize what we talked about in that very first meeting. But it adds to kind of the level of council's role down here in this green line. But I don't know if staff team wants to mention anything about this.
Actually, a while back, Dan had provided this to me that came along with an article, and it really does kind of talk about, you know, the runway and taking off in terms of council and staff's goals. And so as we talk about roles and responsibilities, I thought that this would be a really great way to kind of set the table to understand when I'll make references of, hey, I need the council at the 50,000-foot elevation, I'm thinking, you know, purpose, vision, strategic, you know, understanding. And if you look at kind of how this slides down from you know, up in the air to the runway, kind of gives you a good sense of where your role is and where kind of staff and the administration's role is. And ultimately, the message here is that it's a continuing partnership all the way through. So anyway, I thought this could help kind of set the table and give us perspective as we kind of jump into roles later on in the conversation.
Yeah. Any questions about that? So that was the first step in our journey, was outlining, you know, you guys also outlined some questions that you had about roles and responsibilities as a result of that conversation. That's what we'll dig into tonight. But then step 2 was to talk about some of the procedures and protocols. And so we did a deep dive on the agenda process. And so I believe you also have in front of you, or received it ahead of time, a summary of that conversation. There was a memorandum that was prepared summarizing just, I think the governance subcommittee is going to continue to work on this, and you guys are going to get a chance to practice with this agenda structure, but it just outlines those different sections of the agenda. They're in a slightly different order based on the direction you guys shared last time, and we identified the purpose under each of those agenda sections and tried to summarize that for you. So just wanted to see, following that conversation, if there were any questions from the group or any follow-up insights after that discussion.
I don't know if you want to go here, but like I noticed the work session is first. Is that intentional or just curious?
That was as we talked about that during the discussion. And so I know maybe there's a meeting in February coming up where you guys are actually going to get an opportunity to try this out and see how it works. Typically, we talked about how the work sessions have been at the end, and that's an opportunity to have some really rich discussion on some big topics that you will be asked to make decisions about. And so what we heard that expressed in those discussions was that it's really hard to do that at the end of the meeting when it's so late and you're getting towards the end and people are ready to go home. And so we talked about how other cities put it at the beginning, and it might be an opportunity to be able to have those discussions right out of the gate in a council meeting.
I'll just put it out there. I think this is great. I think my only concern, and I know I've heard some of us talk about like how public comment, like trying to put that at the beginning for people who come, like so that they can. So I don't know if this is like the direction we're moving or where we're going, but that was something that I just wanted to mention.
So, Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the intent is to reflect on this and think about it, and then to try it, and then to provide any, reactions or additional direction after you guys have had a chance to see how it works and see how you feel, and if it meets the intent and the direction that we discussed the last time.
I'm also curious, so it'd be like work session starts at 6 and it can go from 6 to 7, and the meeting starts at 7?
Correct. It would have very defined timeframes, because what we're doing here is slightly different than what some other communities do, where they actually have the work session as a formal separate meeting. And so we'll try it on putting it on one entire council agenda, but and work with the mayor to say, okay, we have a finite period of time. And once that time's up, we got to move on to the next thing. So that's also a training for our staff to be very succinct and get to the point of what they need from council.
And to train us to be more succinct?
Yes, we've got that on the list too.
I like that council reports and new business are together. I think that adds clarity for us in terms of not knowing what to talk about when. Just put them together. I think that's a great solve. So I'm excited to try it.
Any other good questions and comments so far? Any other questions from the group?
One question I have is, I read the public comment period where the presiding officer may alter the amount of time unilaterally, or do that person have to have a consent from the council, or?
On determining the time limits for public comment?
Yeah. Just want to make clear. Is there any rule for it, or?
I don't think there's a need for it, and I don't think I've set public time unless there was more than 15 or 20 people.
Right.
And the one time I should have, I didn't, and so in fairness, it was when a bunch of people signed in at the last minute.
Right.
But generally, the presiding officer of the meeting and Robert Rules of Order can do that, so we would be kind of deviating from a normal practice.
So let me ask you, then follow up, it's that, do we know how many people would testify or make a comment prior to the meeting, or is it added on as we go, or what's?
The only time is, there are sometimes we have signals, right? Like when we start getting a ton of public, like fireworks, we start seeing them. And staff in the past, generally when we've had that amount, will stand in the hallway and start taking cards because people are coming in. And I will tell them, in 8 years, we probably have only had that happen a handful of times. But for me, when I look at the agenda and I think 3 minutes per person, if 15 people show up, that's 45 minutes. So I start like gauging based on what it is. And then I'll tell you, it is very hard to get people to stop talking.
Right.
And so often they will go over 3 minutes, which makes it a long time. I'm not one to want to shut off public comment. I think we should listen as long as people are talking. But we could often dress it down to 2 minutes. Then we could get twice many, or at least a third of the amount through.
I totally understand. Just that once we start, and let's say people show up, can we adjust it as we go? No,
I don't think that would be fair to the audience to allow some people to speak 3 minutes and some people to speak 2. And so if we got bombarded, we would just have to buckle up.
Because my first meeting was 5.5 hours long. I'm very conscious about this.
Some councils put time limits, say 30 minutes.
Okay.
That's an option we could consider in the future. I've served on councils where on boards where that's been the case. It's just not been a practice of ours.
Okay.
I'd say what you see here is actually fairly consistent, but just know, I think as the mayor says, this is a policy document and you can change it. I think give the governance policy subcommittee some time to process this and put something together on your rules for you to respond to. And it's great, it's fluid, right? So when policy needs to change, you can change it as a body.
And 3 minutes is a long time.
And one point of clarification is in the current council rules, it's 5 minutes. So that seems like a long time.
I have a question related to the agenda.
Sure.
The proposed agenda. Would it be possible as we're creating this to maybe experiment with putting the times we think each item, like 7:15 this, 7:45? The only reason I ask that is I've gotten feedback from the community that they want to come for a certain part, and I think there's some variance there. We can't guarantee, but I think that might be an opportunity.
Yeah, and we try to adhere to that. I think sometimes we don't hit the mark, but we generally try to give a time frame.
Yeah, and I think it's particularly important on items. I've had people that have told me recently they came because 7:15 and something had gotten moved before, so they didn't get a chance to speak on it or see. So I think there's some opportunity there for us to play.
Well, and just remember, we only take public comment during public comment period, so if they showed up later wanting to speak, they wouldn't have been granted that authority anyways. And the only times that I've moved things is generally related to counselors and well-being about one of them leaving.
I think this is more of just to watch it, kind of really understand the context, but thank you.
Yeah, other questions?
I've got one. I know we did this on Planning Commission before when I was on Planning Commission. I don't know if it's been a city council practice before. When we've had a lot of public comment about a project, we've made the decision where it's been like, 5 or 10 people will speak in favor, and we'll set that number of people testifying in favor, and then say, okay, 10 people testifying opposed, and then like 10 people neutral, and kind of a quantity of people or a quantity of testimony that we'd get. I don't know if it's something you should do here in City Council or if it's something you all would support, but it's something we did on Planning Commission.
I think it's generally at the preference of the meeting facilitator, and I've been on both sides. I particularly don't like stacking like every other. I like to have them as they come, because if you sign up first and then we do that, you could end up testifying an hour later.
Can we put something on the public, so last meeting we did cut from 3 to 2, can we just put something on our site that says 3 minutes typically, could be because I just think there could have been people, I do know people who showed up that probably weren't ready for the 3 to 2, so just something that makes it clear to the public that could happen.
Okay, any other questions or discussion about the agenda structure?
Just one compliment of how now that we have this public comment, or not now that we have it, when it comes up on the agenda, you kind of give this preamble about that this isn't the time for the council to speak, and it's very helpful to folks visiting, but I think it's also helpful to us to have little reminders like that, so maybe there's opportunity to build in other little preambles like that in front of sections like here, clarifying how to handle questions or purpose of the presentation. So maybe we get some kind of a one-sentence purpose statement before things that would help condition us as well as visitors.
Perhaps in the council rules subcommittee, we could take a stab at it and bring it forward.
I have one comment on the council reports and new business section, and Jenny, this might be for you, or maybe Mayor, for you too. Just so I'm clear, as we go to our boards and commissions meetings or have reports we want to bring back, and we want to share something in the city council meeting, let you all know beforehand, or what's the process like for making sure we have space to actually share what we need to share?
Well, we have asked the city manager to come back with some kind of outline on how to do that effectively. And so I know it's on her work plan that she's addressing currently, because 7 of us, with the expansion of 5 to 7, that section can turn into an hour.
Yeah.
And so I think some structure from the city manager, and then maybe even when we get into this roles and responsibility around board and commissions, maybe that's a good place to chat about it too. Or maybe just saying every other, we can assign who's going to do what report out. Now, if it's something urgent you think we have to know, then of course.
Yeah.
But I just getting away from routine, everyone taking 5 minutes, it could get out of control.
Yeah, typically, you're correct, where the council would report back on any subcommittees or external committees that they sit on. And the mayor's correct, we'd be looking at assignments or putting something in front of you to see that you're comfortable with, to shorten the amount of time people are speaking. And then if you have something that you want to bring forward to the council for consideration, that work you'd like for either me to explore, that would be the time. And that would be kind of your new business item. The idea would be that you would bring bringing forward items that you would like to see come to council on a future agenda. We kind of want to avoid walk-on items and leave those for time-sensitive things or things that are of that nature. I think just for purposes of transparency, but our rules, I think, do allow for that, but that's a policy issue that the council will have to decide their level of comfort.
I have a question on the city manager's report. Is there a way for us to, so I'm good, I think it's a really important part of the agenda, but I lose track of all the things that we've asked you to do, basically. And I wonder if like there's like a, it doesn't need to be in the agenda, but like just an overall list, and then we can see the 2 or 3 things you're gonna update us on in this meeting. Because I'm like, man, we ask a lot of you, right? And like it's I don't want to ask the same things over and over. Like I just remembered we have a safety audit coming off of Barrows Road that's going to be due sometime soon, and I'm like, how do I not forget that? But also give you the autonomy to report on what is burning and what, you know. So I don't know.
So a couple of things are in process. So the future agenda, that is a planning tool for me that I give you copies of. We're actually going to be adding a matrix to that tracks the item that was agreed upon, who's the lead, the timing in which we think that will get in front of you, and then how it will get in front of you, whether it's consent or whether it's a hearing or what have you. So that's one tool so that you can say, oh, that was my item and it's getting worked on. And then council manager report can be for me to update you on those things. Maybe there's something that's highly visible, but generally I'd like to pick maybe 1 or 2 things that just say, here's what's going on. Ideally, it would be very brief if you had a question, but kind of want to try to leave it to one way so that we don't get into a whole nother meeting towards the end of the agendized meeting.
Yeah, that matrix document, that would be incredible.
Yeah.
Like that's got me really excited. Thank you.
I have a question for the council reports and new business. It's one of the items, so motions should generally be limited to the following. I understand all of them except what is consent to mayor's committee appointments? I just wanted to understand what it meant.
Is that like boards and commissions?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just asking what it means in here. I don't know who wrote it.
Motion should be limited.
Like I was trying to understand each one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So.
Just curious. Maybe we should know.
That would it, I mean, the way that I read that is, would it be good? Like, if I was making a recommendation like I have.
Yeah, it can be clear.
Just been trying to understand each one. Do you know what I'm talking about, Jenny?
Yeah, and there would be very limited appointment situations, like I think Ashley had mentioned board and commissions, and you would usually see that on a consent item or something like that. So we can make that change.
But we do on occasion do subcommittees on the fly, so that might actually, this might be the place for that.
Oh, that's true.
I think that's
But I think
that would be council
committee is
approval.
maybe the wrong word.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we wrote this memo so long ago. I'm like, wait a minute, what was that again? Okay, so some clarification on that one. Other questions or items for clarification?
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah, please.
So one thing to just take away, so this really is a working document. We try to do our best to reflect what we heard, and we really wanted this one for this group to see, to feel kind of comfortable. Yeah, I feel like this generally represents our conversation and a really great tool for your governance subcommittee to use to help work with Bill and I as we start updating the rules of procedure. So we wanted to create this kind of source document for you all. If there's something like, oh my gosh, you went left and I said go right, this is when we want to hear that now. And then the subcommittee will use this to help guide them as we put some kind of red line version together. Ultimately, that will get in front of council that you will approve. So then we really need to use the subcommittee as a rudder as we create that policy document for you.
As we use this, when we post our agendas, is it possible to have some of this language for the public, right? Like council, ordinances, like maybe not that one. It's not a good example.
Councilor Tibbin.
Oh, perfect. Oh, is that what you said? Okay.
Oh, yeah, yes.
I hope so.
Yeah, being able to say it ahead of, as a preamble ahead of the item, and then also
That's what I want to make sure. Not just saying, but having it written.
Having it so that if the member of the public is downloading your agenda.
Yes.
They can see it right there.
Yeah, so the website part.
Okay. Well, I hope you feel heard after the last conversation. I hope you feel like your comments are reflected there, and I hope this will, as Jenny mentioned, a work in progress, but bring clarity to your agenda process and structure.
Can I suggest one other thing for folks that look at this after this meeting, maybe till the end of the week, if you have future comments that you want to direct to the subcommittee? Because, you know, after tonight, might want to read it again, and if anything pops up, that way.
Yeah, if they could actually direct them to me so we don't have a serial meeting
There you
issue.
go. Thank you. Yes.
Do not direct to the subcommittee.
Thank you.
I can feel Bill looking at me.
All right, are you guys ready to shift into the roles and responsibilities conversation?
Ahead of time. Look at us.
What? Ahead of time. Time to talk now. So this is going to operate very similar to what we did the last time, where we introduce the topic. We have staff explain how it's currently handled or provide some direction of maybe what's in the charter or what's in the current rules. And then we will provide, based on the time we have allotted for the discussion, so I've tried to break it into sections here. I think I have those. We will take questions. So again, your questions. And then we'll get into some discussion. So the first one. And so, Jenny, if you want to kick us off with how the intergovernmental role is currently interpreted.
Sure. So you have your charter in front of you, and it does talk about how the section of intergovernmental role is really the mayor and I working together to help kind of define roles and responsibilities of individual counselors on intergovernmental issues. That's under section 3.3, and I believe it is item number 5. 3.3 under mayor and item number 5. A5, thank you. And so right now, and Mayor, please jump in, how we work on intergovernmental roles, it's very broad. So we have state issues and federal issues and regional issues that we deal with. Right now, I use the mayor as a filter for a lot of the regional issues because she sits on so many external boards and has a broader role because of her role as a full-time mayor. And so that's one way that I use her. The other is that she also works very closely with our state and federal lobbyists on things that are very specific to your state and federal agendas. So if she's in Salem, if she's traveling in DC, she's lobbying or using the lobbyists' input to figure out who to talk to, what the angle is, and a lot of times she already knows this because of her relationships. So that's how that role works, particularly when she's traveling. But the actual agendas that are created are informed by your state and federal lobbyists, your mayor, myself, and then that information comes to you at a meeting. We also have briefings with you all to see if we got it right, wrong, or we need to go a different direction. And then it gets in front of you at that dais. And then you talk about it again. And then it comes back to you one more time in final form. So that's a very high level kind of view of how all of that sausage is made. And I will tell you, it's very hard to kind of explain intergovernmental affairs. It's almost a little bit like a black box because if you're not kind of working actively with all of the different legislators and governmental affairs folks, it's really hard to explain, which is why you can't have everybody, all the cooks in the kitchen can't be in the kitchen. That's why it's really important to have folks like Gwen and the mayor, or if you have like the vice mayor needs to step in if the mayor's not available. You have to limit that because people kind of, track all the different things that are going on, and it's a very, very small pool, but it's my job to figure out, okay, what are those things that I need to keep you abreast of? And so that's where I think the challenge is we have so many balls in the air where I have to pick out those things so that those things are on your radar. And then some things, of course, we want to do in different types of mediums, right? Sometimes it'll be a voicemail or face-to-face. Other times it would be at a council meeting. So I don't know, Mayor, if you want to talk a little bit about the secret sauce in terms of what you're doing with some of the lobbyists and your partners in the region.
Well, I think, this was the key role of the idea of making the mayor full-time, was this intergovernment relations piece, because staff think through a very staff lens. And I will tell you, it is relationship. I would say it's relationship management. We have so many elected officials because of our special districts. And so understanding how they fit into the equation, how we're operating, I would say we're the envy of most cities around us because we're incredibly effective. And John was in Salem with me this week as well. And so just having that kind of person. And what I would say about government relations is the thing is never the thing. And if you pull this lever, it unravels something else. And so having somebody kind of manage the internal piece, and Gwen has been the lobbyist now through 3 mayors. And so she has like immense experience of looking, and our federal lobbyist works for multiple cities around the region as well. And we really pay them for their expertise. And they work with Jenny directly on creating the talking points and how we're operating. And then my job is to kind of facilitate the message, because a senator is not going to respond to a city manager. They probably wouldn't even, no offense, not pick up a phone call. The same when I was on the city council, someone might not respond directly to me. And so it's not even about the position. It's making Gwen always reminds me, like communication with like stuff. She's not going to call an elected official. I am, just like I would not call somebody else's lobbyist. And so we kind of really keep those channels clean, and it helps us do that.
Very legislative centric, and then there's also these intergovernmental, who's going to be on what board, who's going to be at JCAP, who's going to be at Joint Water Commission, and that was part of the discussion.
Well, and I would say that is, I put probably more time and effort into those decisions through interviews with you guys on scheduling, timing, interest, areas where I think you could be the most influential based on your own background, because all power is influence. And so I don't want to put somebody in the room that wouldn't have influence in the conversation. I also take into account what I think you guys like to do versus what you're telling me. Transportation, fun, right? Like those things, water. I think a lot about those things. And I will tell you, like Jen and I sat down and we had a Excel spreadsheet with how many hours of external meetings you guys had compared to one another to really think about it. And then we took that document to the city manager and truth tested of like, here's where I think everyone is. And here's where I'd like to think about it. And so we have 2 really great years of doing that, where it's balanced. People are on the right kind of boards. And there's also a degree of like seniority, like newest guy on the council has to take the 130-day meeting. Like, there are some things like that into consideration that we do it.
Yeah, I think what would help me in this regard is, because I'm on.
It's red.
Okay, I'll talk louder. I think what would help me is being a new
I'm going to go ahead and start the timer now, so as we get into questions, otherwise we'll not stand back. Go.
Well, so it says in our charter 3.9 representing the city, and I took that as on these boards. It says when taking a position on a city issue outside of a council meeting, a council member must express the majority position of that city council. Very reasonable. I need help understanding, have we made a majority decision? And that's where I would ask of city staff to help me make those decisions, like empower me with a packet. If this council before me, if I haven't been to that meeting, last year made a decision, I need to know that on that communication
staff
system.
Should be looking at that through that filter where they're giving you the direction going, hey, Councilor Duggar, I think that needs to go back to council and we need policy direction before you say yes or no.
But does that mean staff are going to go attend the meetings with me? Because that's a lot
Not-
of meetings.
not all of
Not,
them.
not
That's what I'm saying,
always,
so-
but they should be highlighting those areas for you that either have policy implications or funneling information to you to help inform decisions for you that you'll be required to make when you go to a meeting.
Okay, yeah, because I, at least on my meetings, I haven't gotten that so far.
Okay.
And there's only been one, and it was canceled anyway, so luckily for us, but I just approached it and I was concerned that there was a gap, but if there's a workaround for that already, I think that would be really helpful, because it also says I can speak my own personal opinion, but also, right? So that means I need to speak the majority's opinion first.
For
Make sure that's-
voting, you cannot
Clear.
vote on your
Right.
own, you have to vote with where the majority is, but
Correct.
you can state your opinion as an
Correct.
individual.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that I have the tools to do that, and I think we all do.
Okay, other questions?
Oh, I was just going to respond. I do sit on one that has quite a bit of policy, and so I do get a staff, but it is because it is so extensive in policy. I think some of the other ones just don't have as much of that, so you may not get as much. This is more like a question for the council. I think that it would be nice if we as a council assigned each other, like what boards and commissions, like I'd like for that to be more of a public discussion. It was my understanding that the council president selected who sat on what in the past, and I think that thank you for doing what you did in the last few years, but I do think that there's something to be said to all of us to hear from each other about what we want to serve on and kind of deciding how to divvy that out for the future.
And the council president did it because we had a strong mayor, and the mayor didn't have influence. Like, I'm now a member of the council, so it wouldn't be a role of the council president. And I will tell you, it takes over 40 hours of time for us to produce that. And so there's no way, and the other big piece of part of this is timing and saying when you're available in public. And I have massive security issues around my family. I'm not going to sit on a dais and say when I'm available to go to night meetings. And if it's not happening, if threats aren't happening with you guys, it's a matter of time. And we need to get away from that public idea of like, what do you want to do? But like, I'm the intake valve in my one-on-ones. And I just don't think we could take an entire council meeting to do that.
What other questions? So
Yeah, so do you think it's important, so this goes back to what council's policy consensus is with respect to defining the charter here? So intergovernmental, as Bill pointed out, it's not just the regional stuff. It's involving like the assignments and the boards that you sit on. And so your language says the mayor's to work with the city manager and councilors to define roles and responsibilities of individual councilors on intergovernmental issues. So I think you need to... Right, the charter defines that. So in that context, we are talking about the council body will approve what boards you all sit on, right? But there's got to be a process through the mayor, and the mayor works with the city manager to figure out how we kind of divvy that up, which is why we have the individual conversations with councilors offline to figure out where people are leaning, and then bring a recommended kind of, platform for you to consider adopting that assigns it all out. So that's really in alignment with your charter. Now, if you feel like that doesn't say what it says, then we probably should outline that as something we need to work on, because maybe there's a sentiment of, hey, well, I don't want it to be a consent item versus maybe it's an action item. But I think there's lots of different competing issues here that I'm hearing maybe the mayor talk about and others. So that could be another opportunity for you to talk. But I think that the protocol that we've got in place now is very consistent with your charter.
So again, just like thinking about the ground rules, we are focusing on the current charter. So if the city attorney says otherwise, that we're not being consistent with the charter and that practice, I feel like we need to see what other questions are here.
Or if the charter is silent.
Yes.
Then mean you get to write a policy to explain what that charter meant.
Do you have a follow-up?
I mean, I would just add, like, I'm not trying to decipher what says and what doesn't. I do think that, like, I think we have more of a collectivist attitude on this council, and so hearing from each other about the things that we care about, to hear like, hey, I really want to be on this committee and here's why. So let's like talk about that. I don't want us talking about our personal schedules. It has nothing to do with that. It has more to do with, I do sit on ACT. MPAC has really big potential policy considerations. It's important for you all to know what that means, but also for you to be able to share what you care about, because we do define some of that through our documents, but we also don't, because there are votes that I get to participate in that unless, my phone a friend transportation person is there telling me where to go or what to do, I might be having to reach out to the mayor. So just like, what does it look like to have more of that? And that's more of an open item for this council to decide.
But I'm just curious if 3.3A7 does not explicitly enumerate this to the mayor?
So, can we get the question,
Bill
Hartmeyer-Priggs answered?
Because
I would read that to say it's the boards, commissions, committees established by ordinance or resolution. So those are the internal boards and commissions that we have in the city. That is not outside entities that sometimes are members of their boards. So WACA, for example, is not a board or commission of the city.
But on number 5, it explicitly says define the roles and responsibilities of individual counselors on intergovernmental issues.
Correct. And I'll also point out that under the responsibilities of the city manager, it picks up that same theme, and it's B10, and it's about consistent with council direction and cooperation with the mayor, encourage regional and intergovernmental cooperation, which kind of echoes the same idea. Intergovernmental cooperation is something that we try to do. It has a mayor role. It has a council direction in terms of things. But what the process that you're doing right now is something that is consistent with working with the city manager and councilors, defining the roles of individual councilors on intergovernmental issues.
So
seems to be the process that you have right now in terms of who's interested in doing things, in terms of, and then making appointments, trying to accommodate as best you can.
So what you could do at this stage is you could define it further and provide additional clarity in your council rules, and you could give that direction to the, I think before we put that up there, we should just see if there's a majority of the group that's interested in that, or if they're fine with the way it is. Again, just kind of going back to our ground rules of as far as how we're going to move forward, it's either going to be of the group or majority. So is there interest in further rules?
I think from my perspective, being new on the city council, I don't need to make the decisions of where people go. I don't want to. I think it would help me to know what people's core values are, and what boards and commissions might be in line with those. And that doesn't have to be a super in-depth conversation, or a very lengthy conversation, but if it's something we can do in like a council, not a work session, but a roundtable, where we just get those out in the air, and then the mayor can take that information and the information we already give to the mayor individually and just compile that all together. But then we each have a little bit better baseline of where we're each standing. I think that would help me. I don't know how the rest of you feel about it.
Okay, I'm going to move quickly. I want to get people's thoughts on this, and so we can keep going. Others who support having some more definition in the council rules around this? Okay, I'm not hearing a consensus or a majority on this. Councilor Tivenon, did you have?
Yeah, okay. So I think it would be helpful to have, along with the onboarding packet for city councilors, something that describes what the role entails, what's expected of the position, how many hours it takes, how many meetings.
That exists, and we gave it to everyone, so I could resend it to you.
Well, no, I mean not in the sea of documents that are sent to us, but as part of like an onboarding packet for each counselor that's coming on board, because I think that is probably what you're talking about, is almost like primer that you can refer to all things counselor. And then maybe it becomes more of a conversation of availability plus interest. I just wonder if there's any mechanism to say, I can't take this on, or if another counselor says, I'm interested in doing this and I wish I could get that one. Like, what's the back and forth to dial these in if if anyone has an exception to an appointment.
I have a fear on this, to be honest. Like I hear all of this, and I think it's good document or good discussion, but my fear is that it is a lot of work to come to consensus on even minimal things. And, I know Jen worked a lot on this, and I don't think any of us got everything we wanted. We each got some of what we wanted, and I just I think the mayor has the infrastructure, the mayor's office, to kind of coordinate individually with us, and that's just is it perfect? No, but it's the best system, because I want to talk about issues that spend our time as a council talking about issues that don't have to do with me, that have to do with the community. And I think I think all great points, but we don't have the infrastructure. If we had a staff, I think, because the other point I would say is, I don't know what my interests are, as far as these boards are. I like transportation, I like diversity, I like things like that, but I don't know that I don't like water. I just don't know, and so I don't know effective, getting too deep in this would be for me as far as a discussion. And so that's my fear.
I do just want to do a time check. We are already over time. Okay, so I want to understand other questions. So, yeah, go ahead.
Just one last thing. I think that the way they shook out this year was great. And the background conversations, the vetting process. It'd be great if we knew every future mayor would do it the same way, but we don't.
That's fair.
And what's the mechanism if someone isn't happy with their appointment? So if we could perhaps get clarity on that, that might add in something that's a bit of a checks and balance on this.
But is it the future mayor, not me, job to make sure every single one of you are super happy with what you have versus there are things that none of you wanted. How do we handle that? And so I hear you, but it would be in a very dangerous situation to start jockeying, because we had this my first year. 2 counselors swapped, and then their schedules didn't work, and then the board was unattained. And so I would say you have the power to consent to your power is in your voting on the document, and that would be the point to say, I don't agree with this, I'm voting no. There's a system built in. And so what would we solve by that? And I would say hold a future mayor accountable towards I called every single one of you and talked about the appointments. And so you were I absolutely hate it and didn't do it, I don't know.
Just add that this process, regardless of whether it's a full or part-time mayor, is pretty typical. I've worked for 8 different cities. This is very typical of what my experience has been. And you either pull the item and then you discuss it, or you, prior to that, have a one-on-one with your chair to see if there's a resolution to the issue. Those are really kind of the 2 options. And I've seen it go very creative at a dais, going ping-ponging back and forth, and it's probably not usually the best outcome, but you certainly can have that if you need to.
Okay, so are there any additional questions around this practice, this policy? All right, so we heard just making sure that there's help understanding the city position on particular issues when representing a board, and Jenny answered that. Staff does provide support there. And then just, again, reiterating that providing clarity around the rules available, number of hours, the schedule, things like that. It sounds like something like that exists. So you guys ready to move on to the next one? Okay. Topic number 2 is decision-making as an individual and an elected body. So can we get an overview of how this is currently outlined and interpreted for the charter, or council rules?
So for 3.9, representing the city when taking a position on a city issue outside of a council meeting, council member must express the majority position of the city council, but also can express the individual's personal opinion on the issue. So typically where I see a lot of these opportunities happen is, for instance, if you're serving in a counselor liaison role. And that's something I think the council maybe either in this juncture or later on may want to better define. But when you're there, it's really important that you understand that you cannot speak on behalf of the council because you are one individual counselor. So you have to be very mindful about sharing either opinions that either you haven't voted on as a body and that you think might happen, and instead refer to your own personal position because you are an individual counselor. Because sometimes that can be misinterpreted and then we could have some challenges. So that's one venue that I've seen this happen. You could be in external boards like you brought up, and you could have taken a policy position as a council and you can share that, right? You can say, oh, we took this, the body took this and this is what happened. Or you could say, you know what, we haven't talked about that yet, but I individually am supportive, but my council needs to take a position and I'll return later with that directive. So I think when you're in external situations, either you're a council liaison for our board and commissions or the other ones that Councilor Duggar was talking about, the external appointments, this is when comes into play where you need to be very mindful and you always can speak your opinion. You just always need to make sure to say, I'm speaking as, Councilor Teeter and not on behalf of the council. It's really important that you always start your conversation with that because sometimes when you speak, if you've got City of Beaverton, they may take it that you have now shared a position of the council, and that's really easy to do. So that would be one kind of agreement I think that the council may want to discuss here is how you're going to communicate that when you're at these external meetings.
Okay, so we're going to block 20 minutes for this conversation. I want to understand some of the perceived challenges that the group might have with this, and if you have some desired outcomes for clarity on this. So, anybody want to kick us off?
Yeah, question on that, Jenny. Does that also apply to communications like email that we get from constituents? Because, on several different occasions, we've been told kind of don't respond to this, or stick to the city's things. And I would have liked to have responded and said, this is Councilor Duggar's opinion, Ridwell or whatever the issue is, right? Like, this is my opinion. But I did not do that.
We are going to cover this under the responding to constituents.
Got it. So let's
so
hold
is
that.
it okay to
No,
if
let's
we hold
please.
that?
I just wanted to make sure I didn't.
Yeah.
But you can't do that.
Okay. we can hold that then.
Yeah.
Because that's really important to me.
That's a whole topic on.
Right in front of me. Thank
All
you.
good. What else?
I have a question. I guess it relates to intergovernmental agency also. Let's say mayor goes to the state or the federal government and then there's something that's happening rapidly, but then city has to make a position, but we didn't talk about it. So I trust your judgment, I'm just saying. It's gonna be tough and we don't have a policy or protocol for that. I think it should be.
So the question was if the mayor makes a decision, if the council hasn't discussed it?
Right, with regards to, let's say, funding or some money that's available, but it has to move quickly. It's hard we only meet twice a month, and we cannot, maybe you can have separate meeting. I'm just saying, if it's gonna benefit the city greatly or something, that, and so how do you make that decision? In a sense,
through the framework that exists, and also under the mayor's responsibility, one is the full-time official head for city for politics, and so there are times where I have to use my discernment of where the council is, but I will tell you I very rarely do that without consulting Jenny. And we think about both sides of the argument because I need to know, and it's easy. This council has this council is the easiest in value sharing that I've ever served on. Sometimes how we get there feels a little bit hard, but I never question that I know where the values of the council are, and that is just real time, rapid. But there's been never a situation where I've been in DC and they're like, Mayor, right now, $10 million is the line, yes or no? Like, I don't know if that, honestly would ever happen. The closest to that happening, if it is, I'll just say yes every time. Don't worry. Rest assured. There was a little bit of that during the early days of ARPA when all the senators and state reps, but that wasn't a city decision. That belonged to state reps and senators. I just stood in there and said, hey, we really value these things over here. This is where you should put your money to that. But I was not the decision maker in that. I was an informant, and they called me because of my relationships with them.
This is another reason why when you develop state and federal agendas that you aren't so singularly focused. You have to have some broadness so that when those things come up, the other thing too is that if something did come up, typically I would suspect the mayor would text me, and if I wanted to just say, hey, FYI, I'm moving forward with this, and take a pulse check, I'm sure the folks will be like, heck no, I'll learn that real quick. But we try to write that framework in a way that allows flexibility for that.
We just did this recently, where you pulse check. I was trying to remember the example. Let me think about it.
Okay.
So I'm hearing just as a result of this, that you guys, part of this, there's direction provided through your legislative agenda, as well as when something comes into question, there's a consultation process with the city manager and a check-in with the full council if it's needed.
One thing follow-up is that my concern was we have a lot of mandates or executive orders that comes through, but it doesn't come with the money per se, and it's costing city money. So I just want to say that if it doesn't come with the money, then.
But again, we're not the decision makers. If
Right,
that's an
right.
executive order from the governor,
Right.
I can't, as the mayor, say, no, I'm not going to do that. And so
Right.
the decision's already been made.
Right, right.
My often as the mayor is, with the homeless ask, the executive director that just came, I did get to have a conversation with the governor and tweak it towards our benefit. That's where my influence is those private one-on-one conversations. There's no stretch of the realm where we as the city could tell a governor's executive order no. Like, I'm with you, but like that's not, we don't have that power.
Yeah, I just want hope that we do, but.
Yeah, every city wishes that they could get rid of those unfunded mandates. Let us know, Beaverton, if you figure it out. Share the good work. What other questions do we have from Councilor Taylor?
I just have a point of clarification. You mentioned it earlier, going from a strong mayor to this form of government, you have an equal vote. I'm always confused on this. Anytime we see the word mayor, obviously that refers to you.
Right.
If we see council member, does that also refer to the mayor? So for instance,
Yeah, the council is the collective,
collective including
and
the mayor.
there are several councilors, and there's a mayor who's a member of the council.
Got it.
We likely would have stripped that member line and just said council. We did a lot of that kind of editing. This might have just been that.
Yeah, we were very deliberate about, I mean, you can find the pattern in that document. It's not by happenstance that we're using those words.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It goes kind of back to what Councilor Duggar said, which is, yes, staff does support me typically when I'm in those meetings, but I do think that there are policy decisions that sometimes we're having to vote for that we're still figuring out our rhythm. I think, Mayor, you said on some of the transportation stuff too, so it would be good to understand more process and or protocol. I think what staff presents me with is usually like the facts. When it's a policy question and it hasn't happened yet, usually Gwen and or Jenny get involved, but like how are we doing that with each other on the respective boards and commissions?
And we can't do it with each other, or it's a
Sure.
serial meeting, so Jenny is the intake for that. Or me, you can call me or.
And I rely on staff to be doing that filtering to say these things are coming down the pike and we're going to end up having to have a policy decision at the dais. And you'll get bits and pieces of that, but they usually flag those things for me in advance so that we're not putting the counselors in an awkward position where they're going to have to. So usually I'll see that stuff coming from department heads.
So my follow-up would be, we are still a newer group, and so, how do I know, right, what I'm expressing? I mean, I just spoke last week about waste management. Y'all should listen. I didn't say, hey, this is my view, I was a city councilor, and we did talk about waste management probably a year ago, and I did share some of what I remember, but how are we, I don't know, maybe that's just more talking, maybe that's through the reports, but we had a presentation from Metro, it was on waste management practices. I brought some of what I remember from our meeting, but also what I knew. But I don't know that you all have the privilege to have what I remember. And so, what mechanism exists? And part of it is trying to prepare for that meeting as early as possible, which is not always possible.
Well, and I would just give your guys some space. what is happening at Impact is happening at every mayor meeting that I'm in, every staff meeting I'm in. I don't think you're going to cause immense damage. Like, to be frank, they're like, and what you weren't voting at Impact. And so I think discerning a little bit between like when you are voting on a policy versus when you are giving an opinion. And I think in that situation, I don't know what you said, but I'm hoping it was in line with what we wanted. Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. But I think it's okay to that's where you learn to develop these conversations and iteration and then hear from other people. And the reason I chose you particularly for that board is because you wanted to be more involved in regional politics. And that's part of the learning lesson.
So is the guidance, can I ask a follow-up question? Because I think that's a really good, is the guidance from Bill, maybe you can weigh in here, or Megan, if there's no policy that I'm aware of that the city council has adopted or discussed, and I'm at an intergovernmental meeting, the Washington County Communications budget meeting, and there's a vote that has come up that staff has not addressed me on, do I abstain? Like, is that the guidance if there's no official?
No, you're not required to abstain.
I can understand I can display an opinion, but if there's not been an official stance, do I take a stab in the dark at my best guess of what Beaverton should do?
I think
he's looking right at me. Do not abstain. Great.
But is there anything in the charter or rules that say you have to abstain?
No, there's nothing that says you must abstain.
Yeah, I would say Denny attended every single one of these meetings as the role of mayor. We made a cognate decision that it would not be emboldened one person, not just me only. It's not about me as an individual, it's about this position. Council wanted to have a broader view. Now, I will tell you, this is a small community, and when you say something stupid, I probably get a text message almost instantly. So there is you have to use some discernment about what you are hearing from each other, and there's never going to be the same replicated conversation over and over again. There is no way for us to give you a written document for a flow chart of every single thing that's happening. Now, trash, transportation, those have themes, and those are decades of conversations we're interweaving. Now, we know our friend here hates cars. If he goes out there and says the city council's opinion is to abolish freeways, that's not the majority vote. He needs to say, Kevin Teeter, this is what I believe. So I think you guys I appreciate the conversation, but I think you're putting way too much into this. Like, you are elected to represent the community and the council. Now they're phone a friend, go offline, call someone, say where I'm at. But also, you could avoid that by reading the agenda, and if there's questions you have, get prepared ahead of time. Is that a good legal answer? Don't abstain.
It's a fine legal answer. It doesn't conflict with anything in the charter.
Is there another question?
Yeah, I have a question, and I hear everything you just said, but I sit on a board where I have the potential to commit the city to a multi-million-dollar financial commitment, right? And I'm assuming we will have a work session or something, on our record together before I have to go in and make that vote. But that is something where I am kind of curious, I would say that there's themes in this project that our values are represented absolutely, right? So, and I know that it's being done in a way that we would all feel comfortable with based on the things we've done together. But I am in this seat where I will potentially be committing us to a huge financial thing. So I'm kind of curious, what does that look like?
I don't think so, because on that committee, you're voting to make a recommendation that our body would have to approve.
So, so because there's the check and balance, because it's an intergovernmental thing.
Yes. You do not have the sole authority.
No, I know.
I'm just telling you.
I understand that, but this is different than policy, which policy can also lead to financial commitments, right? But where there's actual dollars involved.
But you're talking about the Hope Steering Committee? Yeah. You are making a recommendation that this body would have to approve.
So we just can always know that what we're doing on our subcommittees, it's going to come through, or not subcommittee, on anything we serve on, we will see it as a body, and that's the balance to the thing. Kind of thing?
Typically, if you making policy decisions or recommendations that have a community aspect, cost implications, right, things of that nature, it has to go to the body, particularly if it's a multi-jurisdictional body that you're sitting on. And when in doubt, if you're asked to do something and you were not given information, you can say no. Now, we want to equip you with information, but if you feel like, hey, I don't know that, I'm not feeling good about this, then vote no. And then we will figure out where that gap was later. But you always have the discretion to do that. But in all likelihood, you're not going to be asked to make a huge thorny decision on a multi-jurisdictional board without it coming before the individual agencies. Rule of
So a
thumb.
couple themes that I'm hearing coming up in this is, one, you can consult, and you always should consult with the city manager after reviewing your agenda if there's questions. Two, you have staff support in some instances that will be sitting with you at these meetings that you can rely on. And then the third piece is, yes, if there's ever any ambiguity, or you can just say no and see.
Just make sure your friend is one of us.
But I do think these are really valid. Like, this is very valid. Like, it is very intimidating to be in a meeting to talk about something that on my blip is this tiny. And so I do think, like, if you want to come to council, I don't want to just say, like, phone a friend. I think it's fine to phone a friend, but I also think that it's okay to come into the meeting and say, hey, do we have a policy on this? Because there might be something that you are weighing in on that we don't. And, or Jenny, can we find I don't know. I feel that same thing. And I know that, I don't think we're doing anything major, but I do think it's worth saying, like, are there mechanisms and ways for us to continue to bring each other along on these conversations?
Just try not to spring that, because the staff have to support those conversations. And so give it to Jenny so Jenny can put it on the agenda. I mean, I think, like, very few times, unless you go to a meeting at, like, Tuesday at 4:28 and have to make a decision, give the city manager the courtesy, and don't come into council new items and be like, hey, how do you guys want to vote on this? Like, give staff the option to, one, you want to make sure that you have the right information and that you didn't miss a document, so you don't come in and then we tell you you missed it. But I think we have to give our staff the professional courtesy. And I know you don't want to abolish freeways. You were just sitting in front of me.
Where this would fit very nicely. So, and again, the procedure there outlines to what the mayor just iterated. I see Councilor Tivnon's question, and then it is time for us to take a break after that.
And I think it's a good segue when we come back from break. We talked a lot about external just now, but I think it's also worth saying this also applies to boards and commissions, because meeting on a monthly basis with your board or your commission, you get to feel very, very comfortable, and the line can get kind of blurred a little bit. And so just keeping this in mind is something I have. I think it's just a good practice to remember that we're representing the city even in meetings like that.
Okay. Were there any additional questions on this? Do we need to come back to this topic after the break? We feel like we have some clarity on this. I feel like you guys outlined some good themes. All right, so let's take 10 minutes, and when we come back, we'll pick up with topic number 3, boards and commissions.
Board of Construction Appeals, yeah. No, what I was talking about was the, not the Planning Commission, but the NACS, yeah, the NACS. Yeah, NACS, that's finally, I'm sorry, I was, Planning Commission would be an appeal body that, that's, but these are all established by our ordinances in the code. And it's a policy decision about which ones you want and what their scope of responsibilities are. So an ordinance is passed, and it describes the scope, and it describes that the bylaws are going to be adopted by the committee, but they have to be also reviewed legally from the city attorney's office and ultimately approved by the city council. So you're defining the type of, the mission, the scope, who's there. But most of those are all policy decisions on the part of the city council.
So we
over
determine
time, some have come, some have gone.
Okay. So largely, we determine the boards and commissioners, and the mayor recommends the individual community members as boards and commissioners that we ratify. Is
Yeah,
that
and
correct?
things, for example, of how many people are going to be on the board, and are there any qualifications to be on the board? Are policy decisions you make when you set it up by ordinance.
Okay.
Megan, did you have something else you wanted to add?
The state board that's legally required is the CCI, the Citizen Involvement Board, under the Goal 1 of the planning laws.
Okay.
And the budget committee is another one that it must exist. So maybe there's, a
Maybe a
handful
few
that
of them.
are
Okay.
required.
Okay.
But most of it's discretion.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions about board structure? You guys provided some good themes around the role of the council's role on the committee. I don't know if there's complete consensus around this, but what I was hearing a majority of you say is that we're there to listen and observe, to represent the council's perspective, and then maybe providing some clarity around what the process is to bring information back to the council and to keep each other, to be transparent and keep each other informed about what's happening.
I would just add, I like the idea of that document. I don't know if this is allowed, right? That has updates on the boards and commissions for each other. I also do think that we all give a different council update, and if there's a way to be more cohesive about what our council update is, so is it possible for that document to include that?
Yeah, I would completely, that was on. One more thing I think is an opportunity.
But on Nadia's point, there is a staff document that staff update the boards and commissions on, so they have a streamlined talking points. That would be somebody's job that I don't think would necessarily fall under the city manager. And so if we wanted to give consistent, I don't know how, we don't have council staff. And so we would have to, then whose discernment of what, so I'm just saying it's complicated, that piece is complicated, but we used to update each other via email. That was the protocol of past boards. You went, only when we replaced Denny, we'd go in and do that. So I think we'd have to give, that's why we asked her to kind of create the document within the legal framework of how possible, what we can do to do that.
Okay. The only thing I would ask, to your point, and to Councilor Kimmy's point, before we finalize the exact role, I would really like to hear from the boards and commissioners what they need from their council liaison. And I think that's a worthwhile point of view. If you just want me there quietly listening, I'm willing to do that. If you want me active, I just don't want to assume that they want either of those things without asking them.
I hear you. I think that's a power dynamic, though. If you try to ask someone on the spot, I don't know that anyone would just something for you to think about.
Yeah. And I think I don't serve on these roles, but I have 7 years of experience of serving as the council liaison here. I think it would be a good idea if we came to consensus around attendance, because Councilor Kimmy made a really good point. But the other thing to remember, that is that person's one volunteer thing. You guys have 2 or 3 internal boards, 2 or 3 external boards, 2 council meetings. There's some of your schedules where it's council meeting, external board, internal board, 3 nights a week in a row. And I have young kids. I don't think the expectation should be that I go and sit in a meeting for 3 hours when I have no control of the dynamic. So you guys have a lot of work on your plate, and so someone who may have more time and you're learning can do it. But 3 of us here have kids. That becomes very hard to do. And so just thinking about that, you guys might want to have some consensus around it.
Okay, so any additional direction that you want to give to the governance subcommittee on how to shape this? There's some role clarification here, and you guys gave some direction on that. On attendance, is there any consensus on, is that every meeting? Is it on occasion?
I would just add, I think our boards and commissions want to know how to speak to us. I'm not sure I see that. It's on the top, but how are we telling them how to communicate to us? Because I don't know that that's something that they feel like they know how to do.
I think we could put in a requirement of quarterly attendance, and if you can go more, great. And, but if we wanted to kind of say the required amount is quarterly, and you need to inform your staff liaison when that will be, right? So there's some open communication and expectation around attendance. I'd be open to something like that.
Is the group okay with giving the direction to the subcommittee for quarterly and then discretion beyond quarterly?
Aspirationally monthly, but quarterly is acceptable too.
Any dissent on that? Jenny, any other? You kind of look like you have a question.
I think that we just need to make sure that we're coordinating with staff counterparts so that we think very thoughtfully about how to message this to the boards and commissions. The last thing that we want folks to do is think that we don't care about them, because that's not what this is about. It's about how do we manage resources and being very thoughtful about the time that you're spending with them. The other is that, there's lots of tools at your discretion for communication. Don't forget that you have a newsletter that has lots of great tidbits about what's happening in the city, so feel free to use that too as a part of your updates. And don't hesitate to just reach out to me if you need some ideas. I'm happy to give those to you too.
I think I find that me and staff want to give the same update. Very coincidentally, we never coordinate it, and then one of us goes, "Oh, I was going to tell you all the same things." So I think that's the piece, figuring out like what should council share.
Yeah, when in doubt, just tell us what you want to say, and then we're like, "Oh my God," or we'll say, "Yay, that's great."
Just to give you guys a time check, we've hit 15 minutes on this one, and there's still one question that we have not provided any direction on, which is the scope of the work for commission. When you're developing the scope of work for boards and commissions, what's council's role in that?
One more time. I guess
Jenny posed that as a topic of what is the council's role in determining the scope of work for the boards and commissions.
That would be a work session.
Can I throw this as an idea? Potentially, it's coming out of our goal setting. And then we give the city manager, like we empower the city manager to then talk to their staff liaisons and figure out, are there things we want them to work on throughout this year? But I think if we do it in reverse, that's not it. And we have to consider all the boards and commissions, our external people. There's so much we have to consider in our goals, finances, budget, that our boards and commissions are not straddled with budget, are not straddled with some of these other things. So maybe it's coming out of our goal planning, our goal setting session, that becomes the scope of work for our board and commissioners to inform what we're doing the next year.
Which is very typical in what I see other councils do.
To add on to that, a board I serve on right now is having their retreat before ours, and they didn't realize that. And they had us as an agenda item to discuss the new council priorities, and I had to break it to them, like, we're meeting 2 weeks after you are. So maybe there's something there where we can get aligned with staff liaisons and whoever is the chair of each B&C. To make sure that their retreats are happening after the council retreat, so they're most informed.
Is it HRAC?
Yeah.
HRAC.
So are you guys comfortable giving was there another comment on this? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think having the goals come out of our council retreat goals is great, and I think it would work really well. I think something that I would like to see as part of implementation, if we go this route, is like designing the work plan so there's near term, medium term, and then long range goals that these committees can be working on. So that there's like easy action items that we can know, so that they can know they've got like good city support and good city council support, so that they don't come to us like Climate Action Task Force or something and be like, you all aren't, like we're not supporting them. Like I want to support them as best as we can. I think if we set them up well for that success, then I think it'll help make us all feel good.
I would just add, though, like for those of us that serve on boards, like a commitment that we're giving them a heads up that priorities session is coming, if you haven't done that already. And then once we have landed them, that they can learn more. I have met people who are like, you have priorities? And I was like, I think I talk about this in every council update that I give you. And I do think for those of you who sit on boards with folks who've kind of been around for a little bit longer, they're really still struggling with the change of that we are a council manager form of government. And I often find myself saying, like, in the council manager form of government, this is how it works. We've set goals and priorities now, da, da, da. So.
Okay, so I'm hearing good direction for the subcommittee, that you guys will put something and some language together with directing from goals and from the goal setting process. That's how the goals will be directed to the boards and commissions.
Which subcommittee is this? The rules and procedures one? Thank you.
The governance.
Okay.
If I could add something, as we're doing this, think about this through the lens of that. So not only are you creating roles, responsibilities, and outline how you work together as a body through this process, but this is also something that can be mirrored from your boards and commissions. So they're adhering to the same standards as you are. And so when we talk about like representing yourself to external, the same thing applies to your board missions, and they need the same direction. So you may have some boards that say, hey, we want to go out and go talk to an outside agency. Well, that might not be something that is allowed in your protocols. So it should not be, right. So think about, as we're doing this exercise, I think a future layer is, how does this apply to your boards and commissions, and what do we replicate in working with them on something similar, so that they can have very clear direction of what their roles and responsibilities are as they're sitting in the advisory board.
And I would add that I have seen different ways of doing things across boards and commissions, so ensuring from a staff perspective that we do have a unified way of how things are being done.
Okay. Are we ready to move to the next topic? We're over time, so I'm just going to keep moving. Topic 4 is communication. You guys have already kind of touched on this briefly, but if we could just, is there any additional pieces from the charter or council rules that we haven't already provided overview on?
You'll speak for yourself.
I think this one was more related to oral, written communication, social media, use of the city seal, things like that we didn't really get into before on the intergovernmental stuff.
And I don't think those things are talked about in the charter that I recall, something like use of city seal. I mean, that would be, if you put that seal on something, I mean, you're communicating that you're on behalf of the city.
So a great example would be a letterhead, right? If you're going to submit something, it needs to be, the letter needs to come from the city. It's on behalf of the city council. City councilors would not be using letterhead, right? They would make up their own thing, and it would be from them as Councilor X, Y, Z, right? So those aren't things that you as individual councilors can use. You can't independently use a seal, make your own letterhead up, or use city logo, right? That's, you can't represent the city. You have to be very mindful. So there's some legal implications, and I know Bill and I talked about it. Just give me you have a question? Or okay.
I was given letterhead.
Yeah.
Blank letterhead that I could print on.
That say, does it have the city seal, logo, address on it?
Yeah.
No, okay.
And stationery that's got the city's logo on the front that I often use as thank you cards.
But on the city, for thank you cards, it should say your name with like Councilor Tipnon. That's how it was been printed in the past.
It's just
Jenny, maybe you could just to back it up and zoom out for a second to just some of the challenges that this poses.
So what we're trying to avoid is whether the perception of the individual counselor representing the city. And sometimes when people see something on official letterhead, that means it's for real, right? Whatever that says. So we want to make sure that there's no perception or intention created inadvertently by allowing folks to use letterhead. We need to think about what the policy should be around that. Typically, letterhead is reserved for things that are very official or policy that you've taken as a body, or we're responding to something, constituent response if we want to do something formal, or to an outside agency, things of that nature. Otherwise, sometimes it can be misinterpreted.
I just give you a look. I've had students ask me for letters of recommendation, students who've worked with me, whether an unofficial or official capacity. If a commissioner needed a letter of I do want to revisit this or at least talk about this, because I do think there are people, I'm not saying I'm going to write anything in a letter that would represent the city. I can put at the bottom, these are, my views. I just think there are some situations or instances where this is something we should talk about, but I'm open to what you all
So, and in addition to letterhead, I think some of the other questions that we heard about were just around social media, like if you put the logo on the social media, or I think in the mayor's case, if the city owns the social media account or manages it or has the ownership of that, I think that was one of the other things that came up. So again, maybe some clarity around that so that we can get all the questions out, because I think they're all very interrelated, or will be interrelated.
Well, and I think the Oregon State Ethics Commission weighs really heavily on social media, which is why if you are using an official page, it needs to be backed up for public records, which is why my official mayor's page or anything staff is working on is required to do that. So there are rules in place around social media. I think where we all kind of toggle a bit in the gray is moving between your campaign social media, making official statements, and just reminder that if you do that, you have to adhere to public records keeping. So if you use your campaigning social media account to talk about city business, you are now required to have that legally backed up, and it enters a different category. But that is ethical issues that each one of us have been taught, and so I think that's the important piece. You know, who is touching it? What are you saying? But I mean, I have written a lot of letters of recommendation too, and so maybe there's a carve out around those kind of communications.
I think there is. So one of the things that we've got to put together, and Bill and I have talked, and he's actually provided me some background information, is, you know, essentially a ceremonial policy. So that could cover proclamations, it could cover use of letterhead for certain types of things like giving recommendations for individual counselors. So we could broaden it to address those kinds of things, and then other type of ceremonial things that you do from the dais.
I'll say that I would like that broadened, just because, to be frank, I do represent the city. Like, I feel like I've earned that right by running for office, and I'm not saying I want to talk on everything. I have no interest in talking on stuff that, you know, that's not, but there are certain situations that I do want to use my official position, and I think I'm good with clarification, I'm good with limitations, but I am uncomfortable, like, blanket statements saying that we can do that, because I feel like we should, and there are situations that we probably, not only we can, but we should, and I'm good with the clarification. So I think that's a really good thing.
So the clarification, the question here is, when is it appropriate? Okay.
Not that I want to rock the boat. First of all, it's important to say that views are your own in any of your personal campaigning and/or social media that you use. I don't think this would come up, but it could, is if people needed a letter for citizenship. So I've had to make calls to offices like the senator's office, right? This is a reference, this is what I'm going to say. You know, is that something that, just as you're thinking about this policy and what comes forward with this policy, you're right, we earned to be here, and we should be able to use the letterhead, and what we use that letterhead is something that y'all should really think about when it comes back to us.
Other questions? Or clarification?
Maybe in preparation for the subcommittee, you telling Jenny how you're using the letterhead now?
I don't get to. I've been doing it. I was told not to. I was told I couldn't, so I haven't.
How you would want to.
Okay.
How would you like to do it?
Sure.
So we have that list.
Didn't do it.
Yeah. Because I think there's all the time.
Thanks, John.
I think citizenship is one. I write a ton of college letters.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do as well.
Yeah.
So just tell her what you think you want to use it for, so we run it through a filter.
Dan made a really good point. He whispered to me stationery versus letterhead. So, you know, we might be able to come up with something creative that still represents Beaverton. It's not official letterhead, because letterhead is used in many official capacities. So something that represents Beaverton, but that is appropriate for letters of recommendation or what have you. So I think we can figure it out.
And thank you cards. I write a ton of them.
Absolutely. And thank you cards.
And having your name on it could really could solve some of the issues that we're dealing with here.
Okay, so have we we got good direction on oral, written communication, city seal, letterhead, stationery, social media. Any remaining questions?
I would just say the last one is press.
Yeah.
That is one, I will tell you, a lot of you have been sideways by making comments in the press, and
we are going to cover, I have that one slated for general communication.
Okay.
Oh. Well, I was just going to say, I feel like when 3.9 was reintroduced to me for the 50th time, I felt like topic number 4 would be short. It's just me.
Okay. Are we good with this one? Yeah. Let's talk. We will get into media and prep. So let's shift into responding to constituents. Jenny, do you want to provide the overview?
So this is a really interesting one, because there's multiple processes that happen in the city in terms of how constituents are responded to. The first thing is that if a request for information or complaint comes into the city and it's addressed to the full council, a response will be generated on your behalf, and that will be done through City Mail. Now, that mayor is always on that group, and so the mayor will sometimes want to respond herself, right? Because there's a role associated with that. And other times she will receive individual emails and that have operational implications, but it has the mayor's name on it. So there's different types of expectations in terms of turnaround, different levels of resources. So I think what I want to provide to you is just a little bit of background. So we have an Ask the Mayor email that people will email, and that will go directly to the mayor's staff. And then we have a city mail that will go to essentially my staff. And then there's lots of other weird ways that people will communicate, but those are kind of generally the two ways. And so there's some inefficiencies in that we're trying to work out, because sometimes they're asking the very same questions, sometimes they're asking very different questions. So you have different resource allocations to address that. And so what happens is you have one that comes into the mayor, and there's a need to respond quickly because of the stature of that role. And then there's comes in through City Mail, where we may also have that, and then some where we're triaging. So my position in the manager's office is that I am doing City Mail, and that resource is triaging 4 different things at the same time and trying to meet deadlines that, because the mayor will need information from us. And granted, we understand that there's an expectation there, but we're also trying to meet ours. And so we had lengthy response times between like 7 and 10 days. And since June of last year, we've got that down to an average of 4. But we really tried to work to try to get the mayor's responses out too, but it's a toggle back and forth because we're both juggling different things. So there's some opportunity for us to work together to figure out how we can do some efficiencies with this, which I hear from counselors kind of going, okay, well, I need to know who responded to what and when, because you check your emails at different times, right? And so then we tried to push out information that summarizes, here's the themes that came in this week, and here's what we responded to, and we give you that. And I don't know if you've seen that through Jesse, through emails to you about what activity's been going on. And then we're also trying to collaborate with the mayor so we can show you the type of stuff that's coming into the mayor's office, because sometimes it's the same and sometimes it's very, very different, and a lot of times it could be super heavy depending on the subject matter. So I want to pause, because the mayor may want to add in some more information.
I will tell you, it's our internal policy that if emails come to all city, and I 99% of the time let staff answer it, because it's coming to all of us, and I don't feel like I have a unique role, plus it's a workload issue. I mean, my office, we probably get 20 to 40 emails a week. So I see what's coming to you guys, and I see what's coming to me. What I try to focus on is what is only coming to me. And then what do we need staff help for? One of the things that I find challenging in this role is that we don't know what the city manager is doing because we don't have constituent tracking software. And so one of the things that I think will make all of this better and more timely is an investment in a constituent management software, which is pretty common for cities to use. And then there's different levels of control, plus then at the end we could run reports, we could see themes. So I think what we're trying to do is operate within the best system we have. And you know, Jenny and I we've had toggles over response time. As the mayor, I want to be responsive as possible. If I don't have the answer, I buy her time we have a generic email that says, you know, thanks for reaching out. We're going to have to reach out to staff. It's going to take us a few days to get back. Now, there are things where it's like, we got to go right now. But I think Jenny and I have learned of like, when do I escalate it where I need to tell you I need it by this time? It's very few that I'm like, my hair's on fire, we gotta solve this right now. So that's kind of how we internally work on it. But I do think Jenny and I have just been recently talking, because I get a ton of email you guys don't get. How do I keep you informed? And we were talking about doing that through the IOI, so you could see the flavor of emails coming. And I will tell you, they're mostly hateful, so that's why I don't forward them. Once or twice a year, I get you guys are doing a good job. Mostly we're terrible. So I tend to not send those to you.
I just want to clarify what you said earlier, Jenny, that as long as I, as a city councilor, note that I'm only speaking from my personal opinion, I can send, and understanding that every email that I send is public record, I can say whatever I want.
For the most part.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can respond to whomever I want.
Absolutely. We just want you to know that we will respond on behalf of the council to answer the question in a very concise and thoughtful way. Okay. But there is nothing to preclude individual counselors from following up, checking in, whatever they are comfortable doing as an individual. You absolutely can do that. I would encourage you, though, if you do that, if you have questions or you need me to fill in blanks, we're more than happy to help you with that too.
And there are times where we've asked council to maybe not respond. And it's usually around legal issues where we're trying to figure out where we are, because if you go say something that's not legally in line, then there's a perception issue. But I mean, there's only been a handful of times that I think we've been asked to like let the city respond. Usually ADA issue, there are certain, like very legal things.
And I usually tell the council, please don't respond because of this reason.
So to clarify, they're going to City Mail, and then did you say like we're going to start, and I'm sorry, I'm like really maybe a little behind on emails, like getting summaries and or information, because I know sometimes the City Mail doesn't come to us right away, and I just want to make sure we figure out the gap.
Right, so you will always get a summary of everything that's been pushed out on your behalf, who emailed the city, what the nature of the email was, and then what the response was. And those are individual emails that you received from Council Sort in my office.
Any other questions, challenges around this? Yeah.
Question. So, from what I understand, somebody goes to our website, they want to get in touch with us. They're given a lot of different ways, depending on where they navigate to. One of them is the City Mail, the All Mail. And that goes into a special account that's shot out to everybody. There are also people who know what our email addresses are and will send them to all of us. And so on occasion, I got into the habit of just forwarding on to you to say, don't know if you saw this. Because sometimes I don't know what an update is, or they tell about a condition on a sidewalk or something like that. So do you have any guidance?
Yes, thank you for reminding me about that. So oftentimes you as individuals will get them, and sometimes when, for instance, great example is Allison will get one where all of you were copied, but no staff was copied. So no one's going to respond. So it's really important if you see that and you want to make sure there's response, please forward it to me, and it's okay if I get multiple forwards of that email because I want to get a response developed for it. So a lot of times they will leave staff off because they just don't know that. So that's a really good point. So I would encourage you to forward those to me. And even if you get one that's an individual and you're like, I don't know how to respond to this, we will help you respond to that, or I can, if it's appropriate, I can have staff respond depending on the nature of it. So when in doubt, just forward the email and check in, but particularly those that go to the full council and you don't see me or staff or City Mail copied.
Other questions?
Yeah, does City Mail automatically get forwarded to us? No. No. Okay. So do we not see City Mail emails until after they've been responded to?
Typically, yes, unless it's something where, because I've seen multiple where it's coming through City Mail and it hasn't been addressed to the council, but it's a generic question saying, oh, I don't like what you're doing, please fix it, right? Or there'll be a City Mail and the council will be on it. So there's lots of variations of how it comes in. But if it's just City Mail, you would not necessarily be on it because it could be about a myriad of things. So it could be an operational thing versus a council-specific thing. That makes sense.
Okay, so like staff will then, if it's only to City Mail, not our individual email addresses, staff will filter. Okay.
There's a lot of junk in
Okay, other questions on this?
It's related to this question, but not so much. But the question is, I get invited to functions and events because I'm a city councilor. I don't get paid, but do I have to tell staff where I'm going every time because I'm representing the city? No.
You're representing you.
Okay.
Okay.
No, but you do have an events budget. And so if you need to purchase a ticket to be able to go, then you would want to definitely coordinate with staff and I to say, hey, I would like to go to this event, and then we can use your budget to be able to cover that charge.
It's not political events. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you cannot buy a ticket to the Democratic Party of Oregon or Republican Party, Kevin. I know you want to go. You can't use it. You can't do that.
Clarifying question is, say we get like the Portland Business Alliance's economic forecast or whatever. We go to that. We're invited by Andrew Hone as members of the council. I enjoy going to that because I learn a lot, even if it is Portland.
Yeah.
Can we wear our nameplates?
Yes, of course.
And, but we are just representing ourselves, or can we represent the city in that function as long as we're speaking on behalf of the body?
Like you could, if you're being invited to a panel, flag it. If you're going to PBA to like hang out, you are always a city councilor no matter where you go. And so yes, you're allowed to speak on, but like, you know, I know you're very controversial, but try to put it in limits. But you are always a city councilor, so you should always wear your name tag. You should always let them know that you're there, and you are, each one of us speak on behalf of the city. Nothing in these rules are saying you cannot speak on behalf of the city. Like, we're empowering you to do that.
I think just to, I don't know if this is a helpful clarification, but it's speaking on behalf of the city. It's about speaking on like policy direction or allocation of resources. Like you can't commit city funds and you can't commit the city to a certain policy direction. I think that's where you find yourself in trouble.
Like the mayor said, draw on the things that you know that you have approved or adopted, right? Your capital improvement plans, your budget, your DEI plans, your transit plans, all of that stuff, right? That you know is in your hip pocket that you've done.
But so much of what the work that we're doing, you're getting from these outside agencies. Like PBA is not only all about Portland, you're learning about economic development tools they're using, so it's totally appropriate to come back in your one-on-one and say, hey, I saw this really great idea. Let's learn about that. That is what makes this group the strongest, is the more we're in the community, the more informed our policy decisions are gonna be. So don't be so focused on just the boards we're assigning to you. There's a lot of stuff out there for you guys to do.
I do think, not that I'm opening this up, I'm just putting it out there, right? Like, so who pays for your parking? And that's tiny, but we need to come up with some, like, right? Because I do a lot of city stuff and I do not get reimbursed for that parking. It's okay, but what is it going to look like if six of us are doing this kind of
So maybe some clarity around just the procedural stuff, putting something together to help people understand. It's probably good for orientation for new counselors. Okay.
Submit your receipts.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you should be.
Yeah, I feel like I opened Pandora's box. I don't want to talk about it.
I just want you all to know I'm taking a lot of notes for our subcommittee, so thanks for all the work.
And each one of you has a TriMet card. No. So our expectation.
Definitely.
Yes, you are entitled. You're eligible, and so you have to use public transport. I would like one. This should not be new information.
That's brand new information.
Okay, so some clarity around some of the resources available to you.
6 TriMet cards.
Yeah, okay. All right.
We pay. Our city is a member of TriMet. Like, this is not like some weird born expense.
You just had consensus surprise on that one.
Never. It's gonna be really that nobody.
You know how many people have them and don't use them? The people working on behalf. Their decision made.
Just when you thought your jobs couldn't get any better.
So glad.
All right.
Parking.
All these wonderful things available. Anything else about responding to constituents, attendance at events? Okay. Moving right along. We are scheduled to take a break in 5 minutes. Yes. How is everybody? You guys want to just do that now?
We need to take a break.
Yeah, let's take 10 minutes and then we'll jump into the last topic. So it's 8:09, so let's just come back at 8:20.
Recording.
So I would be like, just
last major topic. We're going to talk about general communication. So this is in reference to communications with other counselors, with city staff, and then with the media, which also includes press releases. So a lot of this is kind of a meaty topic, but a lot of it is outlined in either the charter or rules. And so we'll hear from Jenny and your city attorneys first on how that's currently laid out.
Well, maybe I'll start with the connection with and communication with staff, and then the attorney's office can handle communicate between counselors. So with staff, your charter says that the city managers basically facilitate communication between counselors and staff. And so one of the ways that I do that quite frequently is through the briefing process, so that we can get you up to speed on information. Aside from that, all communication typically run through me or my office, and the reason why we do that is just make it really clear that council directs me and not staff. That being said, there's lots of exceptions to that rule. So for instance, many of you will be supported by a number of staff because you sit on external boards. So there's lots of communication that goes back and forth, right, on that. And so that's really, and sometimes I'm on there and sometimes not, but you're in good hands with the department heads and the staff because I'm constantly briefed on what's happening. So that's kind of the exception because it's very specific. You're on a board and you need to be supported by staff. And so I rely on the department head to loop me in when I need to be. And then also you too. So that's the one nuance. But most of the time, I would prefer that you connect with me. And typically you'll also copy, like for instance, the key person that you want to make sure it also gets in front of, which is great as well. So that's how I'm kind of following the charter. And if there's things that you want to adjust for that, then perhaps we can talk about that in this conversation.
Okay, a quick overview on the council communication with their fellow councilors.
Well, we've talked about this before, so I'll be really quick. You know the rule about quorum, and yeah, I believe it is. Quorum, that's always for a 7-member body. That's going to be, if you're talking to more than 4, you got a quorum. Now, you are talking about city business. You can always talk about, you know, how the NFL games went last weekend. That's social. That's okay. But when you're talking about city business, you have a problem in terms of if you're a quorum, you need to be doing that in a public meeting. One of the things would be decisions that you know are going to be on the agenda. That would be something that would be city business. Another thing would things that are likely to come up. So that's a little bit of forecasting, what's reasonable, foreseeable. And the most difficult one to understand is this issue about deliberating towards a decision. That's not just how you might want to vote on an issue, but if you have something that you know is on the agenda, going to be on the agenda, and 4 or 5 of you are saying, what's your view on that issue? Not how you're going to vote, but what's your view on that issue? And you have an in-depth conversation, you have a problem in terms of a quorum of you are there deliberating towards a decision. This is the hardest part about Oregon Public Meetings laws, that there is actually some legislation that's been proposed. I don't know if it'll pass this particular session, but it talks about what deliberation is and has a very narrow view of it. It's almost everything except are you available to meet at 4 today, that type of a thing. We'll just see where that runs. I just give you that for information. The other thing you need to understand is that if there is a violation of the Public Meetings Law, it is something that the Oregon Government Ethics Commission looks into, and there's potentially personal liability associated with that. So it's something that even though it's complicated and frustrating, you need to pay attention to it because it's personal liability if you have a violation. As far as the city is concerned, if you do have a violation of public meetings and the decision is made and it's found to be in violation, the remedy to deal with it is to bring back the issue with public session and take a vote. But that doesn't absolve you of the potential personal liability issue. That just corrects the problem that, so you all got together and you decided this issue without a public vote. You can't do that. Come back out, take the public vote. So that's in a nutshell. I don't want to take any more time on that, but it is something that we need to be very mindful of.
Thanks. And then last piece of overview, and then we'll get into questions. Media and press releases.
So on press releases, there's 2 press releases. There's the mayor can issue a press release as an individual mayor, doesn't represent the city. And so we will coordinate on that just because sometimes there's city information that the mayor may ask. But there will be a quote from the mayor in her press release. She has the prerogative to put other quotes in there. And then for the city press release, typically that's generated out of my office. And typically we will have a quote from the mayor because that's the official spokesperson of the city per your charter. And we've heard interest by councilors. Maybe you can, alternate and put quotes in from other councilors. So we've tried to do that when that's appropriate for the press releases. And that may be something that you may want to write into your rules and have clarity on that. But normally we will pull something from the mayor because that's your official spokesperson, being consistent with the charter. And then sometimes it could be me depending on what the subject is. But typically we would defer to the elected official. And then if you get a call and it's the media, and they're saying, hey, what's the city's position on X? That's probably something that you shouldn't answer. And so you want to forward that to me, and then I can determine and coordinate with the mayor whether that's something that needs to come from the mayor because the council has taken an official position, and we'd figure out and filter what that is. But if you get a call from the media that says, hey, Kevin, I'd really would love to know your thoughts about X, you certainly can engage, but a couple of things I would ask that you consider is that you may want to get their questions up front and give yourself some time to think about it. You might want to check in with staff about, hey, I got these questions, if you have any questions yourself. And you also might want to check in with the mayor, only because the mayor has a pulse regionally on what's going on and could add some insight. That's totally your prerogative, just a suggestion. And then, of course, feel free to respond. So you can absolutely respond to media if they're asking you as an individual, but you just might want to make sure and do your homework because there's lots of things going on depending on what the topic is. And then other than that, most of the media is handled in my office through Diana, who's the PIO. And so they typically will actually contact her directly. So I'll be curious, like if you ever got a call asking, you know, what's the city's position? Because normally they know who to call. And then I'll start working on the responses. And usually we do the same thing where we get the questions in advance. If they want to talk to me, I never talk to anybody unless I know what they're asking me in advance. So that's a really good best practice for you. So that's, I don't know if you have some other feedback.
Yeah, I think it's staff. The media is under no obligation with elected officials to say what they're going to ask you, so keep in mind, and their job is to generate controversy and press. And so just be cognizant of that. And of course, as elected officials, we're always welcome to speak, but you are not free from consequences in which you say. And even if you say I'm speaking as an individual, it has splashback in government relations, particularly with large agencies like TriMet or the governor's office is doing. And so just thinking about that. With press releases, I rarely issue them. It's not something that a tool I use in my toolbox quite often. You know, when I was first mayor, I issued a lot of them, and then we've had to reevaluate. Otherwise, there's so much going on all the time. Like, all I would be doing is issuing press releases. But me and the city manager have a don't catch me off guard working relationship, so I would never issue a press release without her knowing. And sometimes, you know, she'll be like, well, maybe I should do that instead of you. This is more city function. And a good example of that is Bloomberg. So I really wanted us to talk about Bloomberg because it was like, you know, it's a couple $100,000 like research that we're getting given to, and it involves multiple agencies. And I wanted us to talk about it. So I was getting ready to, you know, I'm going to issue a press release. And they're like, well, can we do it? Because it's more of a city function. So those conversations happen all the time around like, who is the right messenger? That has come because we have stability in city management, right? When Kurt was here, things were operating different, so we have to like shut that time of the city's history and think about from Jenny to now how we're operating. Everything is in concert with each other, and I constantly encourage them to add quotes from you guys where the voices are important, in particular areas where it is really like you personally have a lot of interest in. So that's how they kind of come up with a diversity of quotes. But I would say, media is a tough one, and you get caught in it, and you will be stuck with those, and it has splack on us. So I would just say, be cautious. What I do, my own personal strategy is I just ask, what's your deadline? Because they're very well like not going to tell you what they're going to ask you. You can ask, and you could say, what's your deadline? So then I have some time to like call and get facts and do it. Don't feel obligated to answer them right away, and they will pick people that they... like they're coming down, they're not asking experienced elected officials. They're coming in where they think you have a weakness. So this is just coaching. Take it for face value, but ask the deadline and call them back. Get into a place where you can have staff support.
Okay, so we have 3 topics here as far as with staff and with each other, and then media. So I know you had a question about when we were talking staff. Do you want to start there?
Oh, I had so many other that I don't know what I was thinking about there. I just want to say, generally speaking, like I would love for, whether it's the subcommittee, to help us land a way to bring something to the council in an email. And I'll just give you the example with the Free Iran resolution. I didn't want to catch you all off guard. That was really important to me, right? So I called the attorney. We had several conversations. So what is the mechanism with which we don't throw each other off? So that's just a general thing that I'd like us to maybe land.
So wait, I just want to make sure I capture it correctly. So what's the?
If a counselor, I don't even know if this fits in the space, but like if I want to bring something, but I want the council to have a heads up on it, is there a way to mechanism to do that?
To the media?
To the council. And so maybe this is.
Oh, if you want to bring a resolution to the council.
Yes.
Okay.
And what's the best mechanisms? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, and I think I do, and I think that goes under the agenda structure conversation.
Okay.
And what we had done in that case is that I had shared that with the council and gave them a heads up. Hey, this item will be brought before you under like new business or something like that.
Okay. All right. So that's related to agenda structure.
Yeah. One comment, Jenny, and just generally speaking, like when we are communicating with staff, like want it to be a best practice for us to copy you. Like I know I had that council briefing and I had some change of heart. I don't remember who it was, but I emailed you. Like what's the best way for you?
Yeah, typically on everything that you have questions on, you should always copy me. I said the exception to the rule is probably on your committee stuff. Sometimes that's hit or miss.
Yeah.
Or if you've just got like, you feel like you want me to see this, then copy me. Okay. But normally requested stuff, should just all go through me and your committees. You are in good hands with our department heads.
Okay. And then, Bill, you brought up like violations of public meeting laws. Like, would we know about? Like, does that happen? Is that common, or do we?
It happens. You usually hear about it in the press. That Handy decision that we've talked about from time to time is probably the most recent one that was a major decision, and that's council talking about how to handle something that was controversial within the council, and it was Lane County.
Okay.
But yeah, they happen, and you sometimes end up with a lawsuit that's brought by somebody. We've had that happen when inadvertently we closed the doors of City Hall at, I forget what time. We didn't realize they would all lock, and so someone wanted to come into a public meeting. It started with the doors open, and then inadvertently the doors locked, and we ended up with a lawsuit about that, and that was an appropriate lawsuit. We paid money on that. I mean, it was like, yeah, we closed the building during a public meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, so it does happen.
Okay. To the quote comment, I think it'd be great to find a good way to rotate quotes. This is more like general, like, because the mayor sends their own press releases. Is it like explicitly stated that they're representing themselves? Is it usually represent? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the mayor has her own letterhead, her own format, so it's very clear that it's coming from the office of the mayor.
What would it look like if there was a quote rotation? Would you just approach a counselor and say, such and such outlet has requested airtime from Beaverton to talk about a thing?
I would just say, like, we want to be cautious of that. If we're talking about, like, Muslim American, do you want Kevin weighed in on it, or do you want us to go to an expert? And the problem, like, sorry, don't sit in front of me next week. Right? I mean, I think, like, we have to be careful around, or, like, if it's about water and you're in the meetings, like, I would just say I would be cautious of, like, an automatic rotation because it doesn't fit.
Of course, yeah. But is that how it would?
Typically, so they will come out of my office. I usually will filter some ideas through the mayor, and then we'll have staff contact who I think the appropriate counselor would be to do a quote. And sometimes we'll have the backup if that doesn't work, we can't reach in time. But we'll try to gather them in terms of area of topic and appropriateness with the counselor. And we do rotate through so that everybody's had an opportunity to do that. It's just, I think sometimes if you're serving on like water committees and it happens to touch with that, we might bring those together because that's at the forefront. And sometimes maybe it ends up not being that, right? But that's typically kind of the approach that we try to take. If council has a different suggestion, we certainly could do that, but I do try to do it in an equitable way so that everybody has an opportunity and look at over a period of 6 months to a year, and then we go back and we see, oh, did we skip somebody? Typically, everyone's had a shot at it.
And it's not like we're getting asked for quotes every single day. I mean,
Right.
Media is like at an all-time low, but the other important piece of that is this council has a very history of not responding to emails. And this stuff has to happen in real time. And so sometimes we try to connect or arranging it. And get it, I work too. But so sometimes it is about expediency and I'm there. And that's why it happens that way.
Can I make a request of the subcommittee? And this sort of goes with the media, but because this also plays in my mind, like I know Councilor Hassan has talked about council proclamations in the process and all of that. And I would just ask, I don't want to talk about it tonight, but I would ask that the subcommittee like maybe work on that for us, like give us a clear process.
That's already in process and was asked from the dais.
Perfect, thank you.
One thing I want to actually ask is that I'm a little bit frustrated with the fact that because we are abiding by the quorum, right, consensus building, that we don't have enough time to discuss the issues among ourselves, and we don't have enough time in the city council meeting to do so. I know there was a round table, but somehow I don't know who's going to work on that, but somehow find a way for us to really sit down and go deeper into the issues to talk about. So that was one question I have, and I just forgot the other one.
But that is what this.
The other option, I mean, the other way to consider this, because it's coming up, so councils use work sessions for this. The goal setting retreat is also an excellent opportunity to be able to have that kind of dialogue with your colleagues. And then, as you mentioned, you guys also have your roundtable opportunities. So just keep that in mind that there are a few.
We don't have roundtables. Let's just be very clear.
And I'm not going to be a big fan of roundtables because we have a large body of work to do. But that being said, to your point, I do think that there's strategy and scheduling on off meeting days. For instance, your fiscal sustainability policy discussion, once we have 2 more meetings with our subcommittee, I'm going to set up in this kind of dialogue how to talk about the sustainability plan. And that's and I think that gives meaning to the format, right? So look for those meetings. That'll be happening in April. We'll probably have 1 to 2 meetings in this format so you can have that kind of dialogue that you want versus being up at the dais, because this gives a very different, kind of vibe and processing for you. So I hope that that's helpful, that we are very selective in picking out certain topics to talk like this.
It's another question is, thank you for that. Another question is, regards to the public meetings law, we can have it anywhere as long as the public have access to the meeting?
No. You have to have it within the jurisdiction, so within city limits of Beaverton. And then if you had a joint meeting, like with THPRD let me use Washington County, Hillsborough, you can be in either one of the locations. But yeah. And then there's some accessibility ADA type issues that are written into the statute, but yeah, but you cannot have a meeting at the coast and have it be a city council meeting.
And we've had meetings off-site since I've been a counselor. We held one in a school once, but to meet some of the requirements, it's very costly. Like we had to bring in CTV, and we had to be very cognizant of what we're there, but I would be a fan of moving them off-site, but it is a huge cost.
That's what I was saying, where does it have to be TVC-TV, where can you have access to the phone or audio?
You are not required to have it broadcasted, but you do have to have minutes are being created and the public has to have an opportunity to come in. And then when you do it remotely, which oftentimes we're doing, then as a practical matter, you're using like Zoom or Teams or
you need Zoom or Teams, because if you just do a regular audio like conference call, you need to be able to accommodate a significant number of people calling in, even if it's just one way communication. So this setup is necessary to do it. We had some challenges even trying to accomplish that with your goal setting session, wanting to do it offsite, but because of all limitations, depending on the areas that we're looking at, we landed right back here.
Yeah, there's a lot of practical problems.
Other questions around?
I have 2.
Staff, yeah, council, or which one's is yours related to?
So this might be a question for you first, Jenny. If few weeks ago, right before I left, I got an email. I think maybe all of us got an email, very technical email about a planning related question and zoning code, development code. And I saw it, and I understood what they were talking about because of my background on planning commission, but there would still be a lot of information I would need from staff. In that sort of circumstance, is it appropriate for me just to call up the planning division manager and have a conversation with her and get her thoughts, since it's kind of a technical expertise field of question?
No.
Okay. Send it to you. Okay. And then, Bill, this next one might be for you. I know that I've seen a couple of us do it before where we send an email to the whole group just giving kind of an update of something happening in the community or coming up to city council, and council is BCC'd. Like, I'm thinking of John and the mayor going to the state and having conversations. I would love to know what those are, and maybe it's BCC'd for council. Like the mayor and I have a meeting about Barrows Road soon. And I'd love to be able to update council after that. But I don't want to take time in a council meeting to do that. Is it can I just send a blind copy to council and say these conversations happen?
I'm going to give you that horrible answer. It depends.
Okay.
The BCC is done because we want to make it difficult to have a group conversation, and that's why we send BCC. And it's going to depend on the topic. And I just think for the purposes of tonight, I'm going to have to stop there.
Okay, so in the future, if I want to do that, I can reach out to you or Jenny and say, I want to send this. Is this okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah. Normally, best practice, my response would be, don't do it.
Okay.
But I think what we've asked the city manager is to help us create a place to do that. And it would be not just boards and commissions. All we talked about in Salem is purple pipe and getting me.
Okay, other questions? Okay, so there were just a few other remaining topics. You guys had asked about the council and mayor's role in emergency response. And as we were developing tonight's topics, Sia mentioned that the city is working on its emergency operations plan. And so a lot of that is going to be more detailed as that plan is updated, and you guys will receive updates on that. So if everybody's comfortable, that work is underway, and when will come from staff. And then the other topic that came up was around censorship. There wasn't a majority of the group who expressed interest in this, and we kind of touched on it at the first meeting, that censorship, yes,
okay.
Sorry.
Yes.
I typed it up incorrectly, so I'm just like, it's late and tired. Okay, censorship. Anyway, so there wasn't a majority of the group that wanted to delve into this. I didn't want people to think that they weren't heard, but it could be addressed at a future discussion if there was a group that was still interested in hearing about that.
Couple questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Are we in future topics? Is that?
Yes, or so those were the only other two remaining that I didn't want you to think that we just totally ignored. So if there's no additional interest on those, or if there is, please bring it up, or if there's other topics that we haven't addressed.
Mine are other, but they're asked to the subcommittees, so I can hold on those if people. Okay.
You just meant don't call us individually.
Got it. My ask to the subcommittee, and this because I've struggled with this, proclamations versus resolutions. I think it would be really helpful for me to know the process, the effect, the impact, that sort of thing. Like I want to get things done, and I want to know the best way to do it without wasting your time and without being not having the impact that I want. So I think if we had some general guidance on, if you want this thing, do this thing, I think it would be really helpful to me as a counselor. The second part of that is also our ordinance process. I know it's pretty clear in the charter, but what's not clear is like the practical way, right? Which is number one, maybe email the mayor or Jenny to talk, get it on the agenda, or give it a heads up to the staff, or whatever those things are. It's very high level.
What do you mean by ordinance?
That's another, if I want to propose an ordinance as a city councilor.
Like a rule change.
A rule change, a policy rule change. And maybe there should be some, again, definitions on what you're really looking for is more of a resolution or something like that. Just some clarity on those things, because that's the most basic, one of the most basic functions as a counselor. And I don't know that I've been explained like the most impactful way to do those things, and then how to get them done appropriately without blindsiding my colleagues or inordinately requiring things of staff. Like, I want to be efficient and respectful, and I just need help with that.
Yeah, those things I would, and I think you're already doing it, is if you have things like that in mind, that if you don't know what the tool is to get it done, you need to bring it to my attention so I can tell you what the path forward is, and then those implications, and then what is the best tool, and then what does it mean? Like, for instance, if you want to do an ordinance, it seems like it's simple, but there's a huge number of steps, right, that happen even before you get there. So I think the first step is start with your city manager. Let me figure out what it is you want to solve, what the best path is, and then give you kind of all those questions that you ask about implications. Then give you the data that you need so that you can go ahead and bring that forward to council if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I think as we think about an onboarding protocol for new counselors, like, I don't want everyone to go to you for everything all the time. Like, when it's something that I can institutionally learn too from you, right? Like, so I think there's an opportunity for us to go to you for those things, but also to create like something official.
I think it's just challenging because the situation is very likely to be not replicated again, and every time we do something it's a little bit different. But I do think some definitions, like resolution is typically a direction of staff and policy, and a proclamation is what ceremonial, and so I think we could work on the piece. But I do think, like, I mean, I struggle with it too, and I've been doing it a long time. Like, I ask Jenny all the time, like, what's the best path to do this? We literally hired her for that, and so
Others?
Can you remind me, you said there were two topics. One was censorship.
Yeah, the emergency response, the council and the mayor's role in emergency response.
Okay. I mean, I do think it doesn't have to happen tomorrow, but I do think we should have language around what censure, like, I don't think it affects this council, I hope, but like, what does that mean? What is the process? How do we do that? I don't know that we've landed that. I don't know if we need a majority to make that happen.
I want to make sure there's a majority of interest so that the subcommittee knows that they should work on that. I think that's kind of the process here that we've gone through. So if there is a majority of the group that wants the subcommittee to spend time on that, then they should bring something back. And we should talk about kind of what the goal, like we have in the other topics, like what the goal is there, what we want to make sure we're gaining clarity on.
Okay, I would support that. I'm trying to understand, like, how are we deciding what we put up here versus what's a majority? Like, you want certain things to have a majority and certain things not
Well,
to?
if it wasn't clear, like as people were going
Yeah.
on, like, we're not taking votes, but I'm trying to like understand the general direction. Then I've asked you guys, if as we wrapped up each conversation, if I haven't heard from folks about their positions on something, then I've asked if everybody's in agreement or in dissent. So it's kind of an informal way of polling, if you will. So on that topic, is there a majority of the group that wants the subcommittee to explore that? And
I guess just for me, and I don't believe it's an issue for this council, and I think we've at least moved on beyond that. It's the so what of the work. We can issue a censorship, but there's absolutely nothing that means to the community besides we're not happy with this person. And so there are some language in the charter around what we could censure for. And so beyond that, are you looking for us to, I don't know what problem we're solving to like take to the subcommittee?
yeah, first I kind of want to understand if there's an interest in it,
Yeah.
and then second we would clarify what the goals are.
Do you want to go first?
Okay, I was just a response. If I'm planning on running for office again, the last thing I want is to get censured by the people I serve with. I think it would be a very big stick to hit someone with. And I think from what I have heard, there's an appetite for even having a 1 or 2 sentence description of how you would apply it and what the scenario would be under which it would be warranted. I'm interested in that.
Can we just overview, is there, other than, the charter's pretty vague about it, is that right?
Right, it allows for it, which is different from the old charter, and then you typically see as the process is built out in the council rules. And I think really what you're looking at is what are the things that can generate that type of a complaint, And what's the, how many people have to agree that it's worth pursuing? I mean, one person's upset, well, I'm sorry.
So,
Yeah, okay.
But does it take them, yeah.
I stated my opinions before, but I have a history of going through this before in the nonprofit, and then that at that time it's very vague in our charter. So the huge issue regards to how you're gonna do censorship or discipline. Because it's very vague.
Okay.
Like it says, oh, you can addition to censure and discipline, but like how and what? How was the procedure like? Are we inventing as we goes? So maybe it's intentional that maybe it's make it harder to censure somebody, but then you have to. Not that I think we're gonna have any issue. Just having the process
Defined.
Not extensively, just maybe go talk to the person, something like that would be. I'll be interested to just know what would be the procedure like.
I'm seeing ahead. Okay, so I see enough. Want the subcommittee to work on this, so then we would be looking for what triggers it.
Process also.
Yeah,
Notice,
process.
opportunity to be heard, decision making.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The subcommittee is going to be busy. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we could work on it, but just adjust your expectations that we cannot remove one another. That has to be a vote by the people. And the only thing I could think about all the years I've been on council was if Denny was currently serving with what just happened, but we also would always have the ability to say, as a council, the statement we did could have existed if he was on the council or not. So we can do that. Just I want to adjust people's expectation that a censorship, like we cannot remove. There are things we can't do.
We can remove.
Yeah. Okay. Like there's laws and like we can try. Look at Clackamas County. Yeah.
Okay. So other topics that there's interest in the subcommittee exploring than what we've discussed. Yes, Jenny.
Just a point of clarification. On the censure issue, in terms of prioritization, I secretly would really like to get through the other stuff and get to that one last, if that's okay, because we've got a lot of meat. Okay. I don't want to dismiss it, but I just want to make sure that we get the agenda structure and the rules updated, and we will get to this, but it may not be the first thing.
Okay. All right. How do you guys feel about, do we have clarity? Almost getting there? The subcommittee certainly has some work to do, but at least you've given them some clarity on what they will work on. So on that, before we do our reflection and talk about goal setting, why don't we just talk about the goals of the subcommittee and just provide some clarity around their next steps. I don't know if we were maybe going to talk about a potential meeting schedule and then just that body of work.
So we do have the first meeting already scheduled. I believe it's the 27th, if I'm not mistaken. And just to remind the group, that is Ashley Allison and the mayor. That is the governance policy subcommittee, and they are tasked with helping take all of the summary information that you got with respect to the agenda structure, which we will allow folks to still digest and process and give me feedback to incorporate to the subcommittee, and to put that into an updated rules of procedure, and also create some onboarding tools as a result of that and defining things a little bit better. And then also, I've just got some general notes, but I'm not going to get everything. I also heard about kind of re-emphasizing, making sure that I'm working on the ceremonial policies, which is already something that's processed. Things like kind of stationery and letterhead issues, we can solve that offline as well. So I just want to recognize that. And then I think the biggest thing that's going to happen with the subcommittee is taking all of this, and I'll work with the Sarah, the consultant, to kind of do a summary document like she did here. So the subcommittee has some summarized stuff, but this is going to be the tricky part where we're going to have to put this into some type of policy format. And I think your policy subcommittee is going to take the first crack at that and then come back to the council for some feedback, because this is important. And I think that just keep in mind, Let's not have our eyes be bigger than our stomach in this process. Getting something down on paper and generally is a first good step, and then we can build on that, because I'm going to tell you there's a lot more that we need to add to this conversation, and I think we've just kind of scratched the surface, but this is a great place to start. So I feel very good about all the things that council talked about this evening.
All right. We'll save reflections for last, but just updates. You guys have your goal setting coming up the weekend of February 11th and 12th. It's the council's version of the Super Bowl. So you guys will have your policy or your goal setting session in advance of that, similar to what we did for this training. I have meetings scheduled with everybody's scheduled for tomorrow or the following day. And we'll talk about, it'll be focused on outcomes of that workshop, of that process, as well as some of your priorities that you have in mind. So just be thinking about that if you haven't thought about it already, because that will be the focus of our conversation. And then any questions about that?
When can we expect like an overview of what's happening that weekend? Like the agenda?
So the interviews inform how I present the agenda to Jenny and the subcommittee, and the subcommittee will talk about that, and I think that meeting is scheduled for next week. I think it's next week.
Get it like a week
soon.
before.
Yeah, it's about a week before, I think, the council retreat.
Yeah, well, I think we have it scheduled, so we'll bring a draft agenda to the subcommittee, and it'll go out a week before, and I think we have it scheduled for just that, so we'll finalize that day, and it'll go out.
That is like a week from now, just so you.
Yeah.
I just would like to see the agenda before the weekend, a week before, if it's possible.
I may not have an agenda for you, but I'm more than happy to identify some of the general themes and give you kind of a framework, even though we won't have an annotated agenda like you received this evening. But I can give you kind of a general gist after talking with Sarah and the subcommittee.
Just agenda and like what we should be prepared. You know, like we've had a couple of these, and this is a whole nother council and a whole nother format. Thanks.
Another point of clarification. You mentioned the Super Bowl. Is it on the Super Bowl Sunday? Are we going to be done in time for that?
I think it depends on, we haven't talked the times for that yet.
We have it scheduled for a half day for Sunday, full day Saturday. So ideally, love to be wrapped up by lunchtime. Worst case scenario, 1 o'clock.
Okay.
That's incentive.
Thank you. Okay.
We will not keep you here until 3:30. Remember, this council picked this date.
So yeah, a day and a half, and the agenda really is designed based just as these agendas were based on the input that you share. So, and how that works is I take what I hear from you all and I summarize the themes, and that's what I bring back to Jenny and the subcommittee. Okay, so then let's just wrap up how you guys have, I just want to kind of gauge how this process felt. I want to know if you felt heard, and how you're feeling just in general about the direction and the outcomes.
I can go first.
Great.
Aside from feeling tired, because this is my bedtime, today was really good for me to just feel like we all got to kind of give our perspectives on expectations and roles. So this was super helpful. There is a lot for us to still dive into, but I feel like I have a lot more clarity into everyone's state of mind going into that subcommittee. So I feel really good about today.
Great.
I concur with the council president. I feel good about it. I am incredibly grateful to not be on that subcommittee. So to the people on it, thank you genuinely for your work. Like it is not something I envy, but also feel just as importantly, I feel we have a framework to address things that we don't know about right now or we haven't thought about, or to Jenny's point, there's a lot more. And I feel like we have a successful framework that we can do that. So I feel optimistic, I would say. So thank you. And thanks to the staff and everyone who helped put this together. Jenny and the mayor and everyone.
I was going to say I feel hopeful, and I don't feel bad for the subcommittee because I've been sitting on my share of subcommittees, but thank you for your work.
I feel very grateful because I'm curious how many councils actually get this opportunity to kind of knock all of the chess pieces off the board and reset together. That feels like a kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity. So gratitude is at the top of the list. I am really thinking of everyone over there and hoping that this was useful for you, because it's a long night, and I appreciate you all, and I hope that seeing the council coming together and learning how to work together is a good thing, and that it makes you hopeful too.
I will be upfront and say this was the conversation that I was least excited to have. And today I was talking with my husband before I came in and was just like, I'm not at all excited to go in and have this conversation, because so much of the last 2 years has felt like council versus the mayor. And I get like it's not always personality related. I thought it was very helpful to have the charter, because I think a lot of times like we're talking one language, how council feels about things are different, but like really looking at the charter and rooting some of the roles and responsibilities in that. So I think we got to a really good place, because I think sometimes in the absence of knowledge, we fill it in with worst intent. I'm very guilty of doing that as well. And so I just think coming out of here, there are things to fix along the way, but I think we have a good idea of where council is, what role of the council, what my role is, most importantly, what the city manager's role is, and some of our expectations around the work we're going to do. But I do like the hard work is ahead of us, setting the goals this year in a budget deficit and where we're at. And I think you said it perfectly on the break. It's like, why is it the year I'm elected we have a $9 million deficit? And I think that's what it's keeping me up a lot at night, thinking about how we're going to close that deficit and how our goal is going to be incredibly reflective, realizing we have this immense responsibility to our committee to close this budget deficit.
Well, I second what everybody says, and then I think we have built enough camaraderie between ourselves and staff that we know how everybody works, and then there's a disagreement we respect, and also respect each other's opinions and respect the procedure. I really like that, and I really appreciate the staff who sat down and listened to everyone. And I wasn't really looking forward to the meeting either, but then but it's great. I got to know learn more, and then I'm just sorry to Jenny that we gave you so much job. And responsibilities.
Just because you just like me so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I feel like one of the few people who was actually very excited to be here. Just got back from being out of town for a couple of weeks, so I'm catching up a little bit. But I was excited to be here because we all worked very hard to be in this room. And I know we don't get compensated very much for it. We invest a ton of time, energy, and heart into it. But we do it because we care. And we want to do some really great stuff this year and in the coming years. But I think in order to do that, we've got to have a really good foundation here. And I feel like I have a lot more clarity coming out of tonight, and hopefully out of whatever the subcommittee is putting together out of this too. But I feel like we took some really good steps that'll help us make those hard decisions with the $9 million budget deficit. But I think we took some good steps. I was happy to be here. Thanks for your help, Sarah.
Yeah. Any reflections from this end of the table?
So city managers will set the bar really low, and then they're like ecstatic at the end of the meeting. So I'm pleasantly surprised because I wasn't sure what to expect, and fairly hopeful in the outcome. I know that we've got a big, boulder we're pushing up a hill, but we actually have several people that are helping to push the boulder. So I really appreciate it, and looking forward to getting this work done and out in front of you.
Any others? All right. Well, it is 9:05, so 10 minutes early. Good night, all, and thank you for your engagement, and more good stuff to come.